Everybody else ready? Y'all ready? All right. Let me call to order the special town council meeting for Tuesday, September 10th. Appreciate everybody being here. Our agenda has been published and distributed, I'm sure, in accordance with applicable laws. Item number 2 is public comment. If you are here to make a public comment, please come forward. We need your name, your address, and you'll have 2.5 minutes. Is the timer being operated or?
Yes, sir.
The bids and purchases, people will have a
Mayor
chance.
Henry, really quickly.
Yeah, come to the, yes. Name, address, 2.5 minutes.
Hey, I'm Zach Kern. I'm the attorney for the council for today. I just wanted to chime in here because Mr. Pagliarini is not down here just yet. For purposes of today's hearing, I'm going to lay out the order of operations, but I wanted to make it clear that for public comment, if there's anybody here that's a bidding firm, that's not Artigues, whose appeal today's hearing is about, they will be given a special designation to speak after the town and Artigues are heard from.
Right.
So this public availability would be to anybody else who's not a bidding firm.
Okay. Is this what I was emailed shortly? Okay. Okay. So if there's no other comment, let me go over this real quickly. Apparently what was agreed to and advised by the lawyers is there will be a town presentation, which is 5 minutes. There will be an Artigues presentation, which is 5 minutes. Other bidding firms as necessary for 5 minutes. Question and answer session by town council. And may I ask, we're able to question any of the parties that are present, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then there's a rebuttal period. The town, 3 minutes. Rebuttal period by Artigues for 3 minutes. And then we will deliberate and vote. Is everybody kind of clear on how this will go? Okay. So are we keeping a clock?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. Kotal.
Good evening. So I want to take you through this real quick to give you some background information. So the town issued a best value bid on June 25th for landscape maintenance services, which was open July 25th. The August Bids and Purchases Committee approved staff's recommendation to award the 4 landscape maintenance areas as shown. Pegra Farms LLC protested the award of Area 1 major roadways, and a special meeting of the Bids and Purchases Committee was held August 20th. On the 23rd, the findings and determinations were issued reflecting the Bids and Purchases Committee's reversal of the award of Area 1 with the direction to rebid Area 1. Artigues Landscape and Maintenance, the original awardee of Area 1 major roadways, appealed this decision on August 28th. So these are just a high recap of the findings and determinations. It's noted that the use of best value bid method and the management plan were new to the town. Consideration should have been given for past performance of Pegra Farms. And again, with the direction at the end of the day to rebid Area 1. So this is additional information and some clarification from that meeting that might not have come out or came out in a different way. So the town has been utilizing the best value bid method since 2018. The management plan in conjunction with the best value bid is new to this solicitation only. We have used these in the past, but this conjunction with the landscape was new for this solicitation. During the protest hearing, it was noted that Pegra Farms, their past performance should have been considered instead of the management plan that was required. However, the town has never contracted with Pegra Farms LLC. So their past performance could not be considered. They're a new vendor to the town, or a new bidder to the town. So not only was the management plan required as part of the solicitation, we actually went out with an addendum because some questions had come up. And the addendum said you need to provide additional required information in the management plan that I'll quote, that address a schedule that blends safety, traffic and flow, and budget. So the idea of how you were going to handle this work was critical enough that an addendum was issued that specifically said you have to put this in there. So the last piece of this is it's a bit of a tangle in that we issued 4 areas. And when we did the 4 areas, we said no one firm can get all 4 areas. And no one firm can get major and secondary roadways. It just in the past has seemed too much, burdensome, and we didn't get the level we thought we should have. So in that case, we had Artigues was the original awardee of Area 1. They also were the best value bid for Area 2 secondary roads. But we were not able to award secondary roads. Instead, they were selected for major roads. So if the last piece is if, in fact, Area 1 is rebid, we would not be able to issue Area 2 until we know who the successful bidder is. Because if Artigues is not one, then they should be eligible as the best value bid for Area 2.
All right, thank you very much. That comes up at the end. Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. For the benefit of the audience, I'm David Pagliarini. I'm the town's Corporation Counsel. And in this capacity, I am assisting and representing staff on this matter. There are 3 specific issues I think that are crucial to this decision. The first is that the management plan that was left out on the bid by PEGRA was material. It was a very important part of the plan. And staff believes that the bid amount would have substantially changed had they included it. So this is more than a $200,000 difference in bid. Second, as Marcy said, PEGRA has never worked for the town. And I believe that was a misrepresentation. And third, review of this compromises our entire bid process. So with those 3, we'll turn it over. Thank you.
Just a second, please. So looking at this agenda, or this, not really the agenda, but the order that was agreed upon, that got us through the town presentation alone. So that was 3 and what was given to me. So we were at 4, which is Artigues presentations. Who would be, please identify who
Yes.
you are. And,
My name is Bright Ariel. I'm an attorney. I represent Artigues. Before I start, I do have a question that I understood there would be a timer. So is this timer?
I'm keeping the timer, that is set to a different time, so I'm keeping 5 minutes ready.
So I have no way of,
I will let you know there's a minute left.
all right, thank you.
thank you.
Again, I'm Bright Ariel. Appreciate all of you having me here tonight to represent Artigues. Frankly, I anticipated 10 minutes, as was awarded to the original protest, but I'll get right to it. I believe that my job here tonight, I concur with a lot of what the town representatives have said. I believe that my job tonight is to educate the board on some of the legal aspects of this issue. Specifically, I've got 3 issues I want to talk about. One is that, first of all, the bid that was submitted by PEGRA Farms was non-responsive bid. There are very specific laws and regulations. This is federal contracting, this is state contracting, state procurement code, local governments. Before you even consider bids of your bidders, you have to first determine whether or not your bid is responsive. There is law that says it has to be responsive on its face. You look at the 4 corners of the bid. If it does not comply with all of the requirements of the solicitation, then it is non-responsive, and you no longer consider that bid. So it's Artigues' position that PEGRA's bid was non-responsive. I do have a letter that I'm going to give you guys when I'm done that outlines in more detail my legal points and also provides you with case law. Basically, in this situation, you consider case law that is in the state of South Carolina, either in our circuit courts, which is where this appeal would eventually had to if it was appealed from here. You also look at decisions of the state procurement offices. You have a procurement officer, for example, a state engineer for construction. Anything that's appealed from that level of administrative review then goes to the procurement review panel. And we have decisions that talk about responsibility. And some of the things that they say are things like an agency cannot award to a non-responsive bidder. Simple. A bidder's bid that provides all the information requested is responsive. So if you leave something out, something as material as a management plan, then your bid is not responsive, and Pegra's bid should have been thrown out. That management plan, if you go back and you look at the original solicitation, this was a performance solicitation, a performance spec. It required the contractor to tell you, the town, how they were going to provide these landscaping services. It wasn't, I'm going to build this house, I'm going to tell you what color, what kind of materials to use. It was, this is the kind of house I want. You tell me how you're going to do it. And that was the whole point of that management plan. And by failing to provide that management plan, Pegra Farms should be deemed non-responsive. After that, then you start looking at responsibility and things other than responsiveness. But again, the responsiveness is on the face of the bid itself. There's a second issue I want to discuss, and I'm struggling with this one a bit. Pegra made some admissions during the hearing for the bid protests that are disturbing and, in my opinion, improper. They talked about withdrawing their pricing. They talked about that they and Pleasant Places, which apparently have some common ownership amongst family members, that they had made the decision to withdraw some of their bids based on, this is what it says, I don't want Pleasant Places and Pegra Farms competing for the same thing. If we are low on one and low on the other, we can both get them. That was the thought process. That's what they testified, too strong a word. That's what they said during the protest in front of the committee that heard the protest. The last thing that I want to talk about are specifically some of the findings that the committee found. The committee, I believe the town addressed, mixing up my pages. I believe the town addressed the fact that best value bidding is something that the town has done since 2018. That's pretty common out in public contracting. I personally represent a lot of owners, so a lot of government type owners. And while it may not be a best value bid, there's a lot of other types of solicitations out there, requests for proposals, where a proposer provides this sort of information, qualification packages where you may pre-qualify contractors and then later get bids. So asking for these other types of submissions on a bid are not uncommon. So I believe that that's one thing that was not found correctly. Another concern that I have is the emphasis on the price differential between Artig's bid and Pegra's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there another bidding firm that wants 5 minutes to address? Hearing none, we will move on to section 6, and that is question and answer by town council. I will recognize y'all as I see your hands raised. Yes.
Go ahead and start.
Who, Mr. Iacofano, you go ahead.
I guess my question is, I just kind of wanted to hear the last part of the difference of the price. Can I ask to hear the last part on what she was going to say, even though she ran out of town? Out of town, out of time. Can I hear the difference of the price thing that you were going to state? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So the committee, during their deliberations, they put a lot of emphasis on the fact that the bid from Pegra Farms was $200,000 less than that of Artig's. That's not to be a consideration when you do best value. There were four factors in this procurement and that were to be evaluated, and only one of them was the management plan. There was price, there was experience, and there was references and past performance. So all four of those things went into these scores that were done by your procurement department and properly done. The one thing I will say was not properly done was Pegra Farms was given a score of 0 on their management plan. Rather, it should have been found non-responsive. But all of the firms were evaluated on their bid price. And in a best value bid, the town made the decision to have this as a best value bid instead of a low bid. You didn't want low bidder. You've got beautiful landscaping around your town, around your roadways, so it wasn't appropriate to consider a difference in price at that point.
Thank you. I have just one more question. What was the original appeal? What did they do? It was an appeal. Yes. What was the original protest? I apologize. The original protest.
The pieces of the original protest.
The original protest.
So there were, in their letter, there were 5 pieces that they protested. And so we addressed each of what we believe their issues in the protest. And they said they were the low bid and should have been awarded it, but in fact it was a best value, not a low bid. They indicated they had experience and had not been formally reprimanded, but again, we've never done work with them, so we don't have experience with them, nor could we have reprimanded them. They said that one of the other firms hadn't submitted a bond or check that was required, but in fact they had. The fourth item was that they had information that the other bidder had been terminated. It had not. And the last 2 pieces, Pegra Farms had information that the other firm didn't have the experience. However, based on the solicitation and the data provided, the selection committee believed that they did have the experience that was needed for this project. And the last piece is they wanted consideration because they are a minority woman business enterprise, a MWBE company, but the town doesn't have that. What they do have is the local vendor partnership, which Pegra Farms is out of Walterboro, so they would not have qualified for that either. So what we did in the protest was address those components.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chapman.
Yes, sir. Ms. Kotoff, don't get away.
Yes, sir.
How many years ago did we know that we have individuals with the same family involved in this whole project?
I personally had no knowledge of it,
Okay.
And still don't know the relationships. I know there's a lot of the same last name.
That's my first question. Number 2, did Mr. Guy Ortiz, was he asked with his firm to work on Highway 17 maintenance or landscape maintenance because a previous firm we were using was not doing a good job?
Yes, sir. There hadn't been in the past concerns about a firm that we were utilizing, and the firm couldn't accomplish it. So they were not terminated. I'm trying to think of the right terminology.
Terminated for convenience.
For convenience. So for convenience, not for cause. So we didn't say they just couldn't have the manpower.
And so who was asked, or what firm was asked to take over by the town?
So it was the second bidder. This is Kathy Frame, our procurement officer. She has details on this. So.
The Pleasant Places was asked to take over the contract that we terminated. It was during 2020 and the global pandemic, and the firm was unable to staff it. So we brought on Pleasant Places, who was able to staff it. They had been the second low bidder.
And who was the owner at the time of Pleasant Places?
As far as I know, it was Mr. Guy Ortiz.
Mr. Guy Ortiz, who's also Pegra Farms, correct?
No, I don't believe so. Pegra Farms is not.
I call your attention to the comments made during the initial bid protest. And who made those comments?
There were comments by several individuals. Mr. Guy Artigue spoke first. He was followed by Mr. Gilly Artigue, who I believe is actually
His son.
his son, part
Correct.
of Pegra Farms.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. Council,
Yeah, you still have the floor.
thank you. The issue here is the town got essentially let off the hook with a company that was doing a terrible job on Highway 17. Mr. Guy Artigue, at the time, his firm, took over that job for 4 years and did a great job. And the town knew they were doing it. The only reason we went out for bids was we had a lot of issues that had to be taken care of within the town landscaping. We're not giving Pegra Farms the bid. The committee went into executive session, and the information says what we came up with in terms of why the committee chose to have it rebid. Just the part involving the major highways, not the minor highways, not the town property. Let me find it.
Tree care and maintenance is the fourth.
True care, the fourth. What we felt was that a company that was owned and operated and would still be, except for the name, owned and operated by Pegra Farms, which could have been doing business as Pleasant Places, was doing the work that the town asked them to take over. They didn't have to do that. They did it because we had a problem. And they did it for 4 years. We went out for bids, and while they didn't put in a management plan, their work for 4 years was doing very well. And they took the town off the hook, so to speak. All I'm suggesting is that we rebid that part, and that's what we came up with within the committee, that we rebid that part and make sure that Pegra Farms understands that even though they did a great job while they were doing the town's business for 4 years, that's not good enough. They got to put it on paper. And so that's how we came up with it. And Chairman of Bids and Purchases understands that, and Mr. Brownstein, he understands that, and we came up with a bid, or a award, not an award, but a decision that was unanimous. And so all I'm suggesting is that the town had a good firm doing the work. The town essentially took a firm and asked them to take it over. And when they did, they obviously were doing great work. And that is our showplace as you drive through the town of Mount Pleasant. And it's very important that it continue that way. I don't have anything else to say.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Will.
Ms. Kotoff, just a couple points of clarification from what I'm trying to understand from what Mr. Chapman was saying. The town never contracted with Pegra Farms. Pegra Farms did not work for the town for 4 years. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Pegra Farms is owned by the son of Artigues? No. Who is it owned? Pegra Farms?
I just looked it up. I'm sorry I couldn't answer earlier. They did a protest because they said it is a woman-owned business, and it's Renee Artigues. is the owner that we showed, the woman owner.
Renee Artigues. And is she
Yes.
related to the Artigues? Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not-
somehow.
Yes, ma'am.
Somehow. Okay. So but the company that took over during COVID was Pleasant Places.
Yes, ma'am.
Pleasant Places. I'm sorry. I'm making my own little. I feel like one of those crime people with like the little string charts. Okay. Pleasant Places was owned by Guy Artigues.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Guy Artigues. He now has a company that's just called Artigues. No,
No, ma'am.
he is Pleasant Places.
Yes, ma'am.
Guy is Pleasant Places. But if we go back to that first slide of who won the original bids, if we could slide back to the original bids. Okay. Who is Artigues Landscape and Maintenance?
And,
Yes.
This is Mr. Reese Artigues.
Okay. Thank you. So Artigues Landscape and Maintenance has never contracted with the town either. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so this is their first time coming up here.
Correct.
Yellowstone has also never contracted with the town before?
I do believe we have.
Yellowstone has contracted with the town before.
Okay. We also have made it that not everybody can win all four. So if there's a lot of if-then statements, right? Like if whoever gets major roadways then bump someone out of area 2 to secondary. Okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to map all this out. So
Have you been to law school?
I may have been to law school. Okay. Artigues landscape is new. Yellowstone is not. And Artigues was the secondary winner on area 2. Is that correct?
Artigues was actually the best value bid, but
both.
because, correct. So one firm cannot get all four, and one firm can't get major and secondary roadways.
Okay, so even though Artigues was the best value bidder for 1 and 2, they got the bigger contract, which is 1.
Yes, ma'am.
But if they were to not get area 1, then they would bump Yellowstone out of 2 and they would get area 2. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if area 2 would if we maintained this bids and purchases decision.
Yes, ma'am.
Why was the bid of Pegra not rejected out of hand for failure to complete the management plan is one of the 4 key components?
Per our solicitation, responsiveness meant they provided their bid guarantee, they provided their bid form, they provided acknowledgement of the addendum, and they signed everything. So for our solicitation, that meant responsiveness. So they did comply with those things. When we looked at them as responsibility, they did not comply, so they got 0 points.
So they got 0 points. So they received 0 points. So they did not. So I guess my question is, what, and you addressed their 5 grounds for this appeal, and there were no, you addressed them all, and there were no real grounds for the appeal, other than the fact that they failed to submit a management plan. Are they asking to just be able to submit a management plan and be considered? Is that what they're asking?
I think what they were originally asking in the protest was that the contract be awarded, that the contract to Artigues be canceled and it be awarded to them. The Bids and Purchases Committee said, well, we're not going to do that. What we'll do instead is rebid major roadways, area 1.
So Pegra's protest was because they thought that because they were the low value bidder, they should have gotten the contract, as opposed to what we view as the best value in the whole you get what you pay for kind of world that we live in.
Correct.
So essentially, okay. All right. Thank you so much. I feel that I understand this now.
Mr. Rambo is next, please.
I still am unclear about what exactly was involved in the management plan part that was left out of the bid process. What does that mean?
Part of the reason why we required a management plan was that we have found over the years that low bid landscaping doesn't work. We need a contractor who's going to give us a plan on how they're going to do it, how they're going to handle safety and everything, so that we can then hold the feet to the fire to make sure that they are doing that, they're getting safety, that they're following their plan, they're performing.
Okay, so
it was critical
essentially
to selecting a firm, honestly.
So essentially, the teacher gives a test, and one of the students left an entire section off the test, and their grade was marked down accordingly.
Correct.
And now they want
Want to do over.
they want to do over because they messed up, and then also they want us to discriminate against a male-owned business because they're a female-owned business.
I guess that's kind of a rhetorical question, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, as far as it goes, they were looking for a do-over, or actually to just have it awarded to them.
Okay. Thank you for the family map questions, Ms. Whitley. Does that matter? Are there rules associated with, like, when we say, okay, two companies can't get more than, or one company can't get these different areas? Does the fact that different companies have ownership that are related to each other and according to our rules, does that matter?
Okay, the reason that this is the first time we've done a best value, that we've asked for the management plan, because on itself, all of this is just too much for one firm. So that's why we parsed it out and we were awarding the pieces. That's what kind of got us where we didn't think one firm really had the capability to our standards to do major and secondary roads. And we did actually expand and award add alternates to add more levels. So it is more than it was. No, I mean,
It's irrelevant to this process.
Irrelevance. Okay, okay. I have a follow-up question on the management plan aspect. Mr. Pagliarini, so there, in your statement, you said that their bid, I'm getting the names mixed up, but the bid of the protester was $200K less, but if they would have completed the management plan aspect, it most likely would not have been?
Again, we can't predict what the bid. If you saw the bids, there were anywhere from $900,000 all the way down, and there was a significant difference in amounts. However, it just stands to logic that, as was stated by our staff, with that in, it would almost certainly increase the bid amount because there's security, there's safety, there's other obligations. There's simply more staff that's going to be required.
Okay. And you feel like the bid solicitations gave very clear directions on what the bids had to include?
This section specifically was highlighted and underlined, and it was mentioned twice. I don't see how it could have been missed.
Okay, so I guess this is my question for, this is a rhetorical question for my colleagues, but why would we want to have to hire a company that can't follow the simple directions that are laid out in the bid process? I'm not.
That's a rhetorical.
It's a rhetorical question. I mean, if you don't follow the directions, yeah. I mean, anyway. Okay.
This might be a good time for me to just sort of lay this out because we don't have to judge everything about this in the process. We have to make some decisions. So here's what that looks like, and this was provided to me by legal counsel. If the appeal decision is overturned, then that awards all program areas as originally approved on the original bids. Is everybody clear on that? So we are hearing on the appeal decision made by our bids and purchases committee, right, Mr. Pagliarini and Zach? That's what we are here for, is to see whether we overturn that decision. We're not here to award bids or to evaluate bids. We're here to judge we're like an appeals court. All right. If the decision is upheld, which is to rebid, then the rebid on program area, that's that's major roadways. They would award the contracts for areas in 3 and 4, which is town properties, which is to Artigues, and tree care and maintenance, which is to Yellowstone Landscape. All right. They would hold on the award for Area 2 because Artigues was not eligible to receive that for having been the bidder chosen in the first place on area number 1. So if we reopen number 1, right, if there's a rebid, Artigues Landscape and Maintenance will be awarded a bid for major roadways and awards contracts for areas 1 and 2. Or if the decision is upheld and there's a rebid, if Pegra Farms LLC or anyone else has awarded the bid for major roadways, it awards the contract for Area 1, award the contract for Area 2 to Artigue since they were they were first, but they were only not awarded it because they couldn't get 2. That would bump Yellowstone, and then they could protest, and we would be right back in this whole process. And in the meantime, for September, the landscape maintenance services were extended for the month of September in all program areas. So just to make sure weeds aren't taken over during the month that this has happened. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Mr. Pagliarini. One of your 3 statements as to why we should overturn the bids and purchases decision was talking about undermining of the bid process. And sitting here listening to this and listening to all of this, I absolutely see why this would completely undermine the bid process, because anybody who in future bids, and how many bids and procurements does this town do, could protest even though they left a quarter of the test off the test, and they could protest and they could come back and try to get it changed and get a do-over. It could completely bog down the smooth running processes of this town. Is that your assessment?
That is an exact position that staff takes. As the mayor was explaining, it has a cascading effect. It not only affects this bid, it affects other bids. That's part 1. But part 2 is, bids are secret for a reason, and that's out now. Anyone can come in and bid knowing what those numbers are, and effectively what we're doing is discounting the winning bidder's amount. I mean, are they going to come back and be forced to have a lower bid? Are they costing themselves of what staff believes was a fair and impartial process? And unfortunately, in this situation, we're taking the position that is now lost, at least as to this bid.
Let me quickly tell everybody that one of the things that has been agreed to and given to the parties is that we'll have 3 minutes of rebuttal from the town and 3 minutes from Artigues, and then we will deliberate and vote. It's 5:23. In case we do have a 6:00 meeting tonight. So if there's no objection, can we get to the rebuttals, and then our conversation will be more complete because we will hear the rebuttals. Okay. So can we hear the town rebuttal of 3 minutes if necessary?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an unusual situation where the protesting party is much in alignment with what staff has provided, so I don't really think technically there's a whole lot to rebut in this circumstance. But we've at least made the case, I believe, that based on the appeal language itself, from the original appeal or the original protest, the 5 elements that Marcy read off, none of those staff believes were grounds to essentially overturn the process and require a new bidding process. So from a legal standpoint, we don't believe there's any cause to overturn the bid as it existed to begin with. I believe the facts that Marcy and staff have provided significantly show that, again, this was a material element. This was not a box check. This was not something that was some administrative item that could easily get lost. It was clearly stated in the bid requirements. All of the other bidders provided it. So I think if it was something that was not obvious, it would have been a problem throughout the process. We did not have that. And while without question, especially as staff, we all respect the work that was put in originally by staff, originally by the committee, and last month by the committee on the appeal, it does stand to reason that we're going to be dealing with potentially months and months of appeals because of that cascading process, to where if this remains, we bid again. We have what we believe is a flawed bid process. The second area 2 is going to have to be probably litigated. And we may very well face litigation out of this, whatever decision comes tonight anyway. But to further this, to continue this process, is going to continue more and more appeals. Is likely, again, what we believe was a fair and equitable process from the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Erie, 3 minutes, please.
I just want to touch briefly on a couple of things, and I agree. I think we are basically aligned. One thing that I think got bogged down in the committee meeting was the representative from Pegra, who is Miss Artigue that owns Pegra Farm's son, as I understand it. He kept talking about both companies, and he kept talking about Pleasant Places and their experience and their history with the town. But that was not Pegra. That was Pleasant Places. And I feel like the committee got bogged down in that and was confused by his presentation and believed that work that had been done by Pleasant Places was actually done by Pegra. I wanted to touch briefly on the question about whether or not the management plan was clear in the solicitation. In the original solicitation, it was a requirement that said that the bidders shall submit a management plan. It talks about how they were going to perform. They're supposed to talk about how they were going to perform the landscaping services. Again, it was a performance spec. It wasn't, this is how you do it. It's, you tell me how you're going to do it. It asked for project scheduling, quality control issues. It said address each program separately. If you're going to bid more than one program, I want you to address every single program. They talked about how you had to submit a schedule that blends safety, traffic and flow, and budget. That was all in an addendum. There was a pre-bid meeting, and after that meeting, there was an addendum that was actually set out that added things like traffic control during daylight hours, during nighttime hours. One other thing, when the committee was deliberating, they seem to be focused on the fairness, and I agree. This should be fair. And there's case law that talks about fairness in contracting. And basically, the South Carolina Procurement Review Panel has said, while the evaluation does not have to be perfect, it must be fair. And I agree with the town. If this solicitation is rebid, it's not going to be fair to Artigues. It's not going to be fair to the other bidders that followed the solicitation and did the work properly. I mentioned earlier, I would like to leave you with a letter that is really long. Sorry, that it outlines my legal basis for the appeal, and I've also got copies of some of the case law that I cited that I would like to leave.
The clerk, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just making sure we didn't leave anybody out of the rebuttal process.
30 seconds, please. 30, yep. My name is Reese Artigues. I'm the owner of Artigues Landscape. Something that's kind of lost on me, and I don't know if anybody up here has picked up on it. But if you go back and read the transcripts from the protest, my brother and nephew were very clear in stating, not under cross-examination, unsolicited, that Pegra and Artigues or Pleasant Places were essentially the same company. Well, they're not. The question I asked you to think about is, if they're the same company, then why did they submit two bids?
Thank you. All right. So, again, we have several options. Mr. Rambo, okay.
I move to overturn the decision of the Bids and Purchases Committee, which would then revert all the decisions back to the original decisions.
Second.
And just for clarification, award all program areas as originally approved beginning 1 October.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Is your second?
My second.
Good.
Yes.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. We are in discussion.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I know a lot of the Artigues family back for a long time, and the issue here is one, I think, I will use Mr. Rambo's analysis about the teacher. The teacher's giving a test, and she looks at the answers to an individual paper and sees that they left out one of the questions, but had previously been in discussion with the child for whatever reason, and knew and had heard the child answer that. and knew that the child could answer that, but for whatever reason skipped it. And number two, Highway 17 maintenance through the town of Mount Pleasant is very important. We're not giving anybody that by going out to bids again. And by looking at a firm that did the work for 4 years, working with our off-duty police officers on the street, having had a plan that was good enough for 4 years, it seems like that we ought at least give a second chance. And, you know, the idea that this is going to disrupt our whole program of bids and purchases, how many other firms are we going to have bidding that have had 4 good years of work and happened to leave something out, and they were prepared to do it again? And finally, in answer to the question about wouldn't their bid have been higher, why would their bid have been higher if they were doing it for 4 years? They know exactly what it was going to cost. Exactly what it was going to cost, and that's why they bid that number. So I've said enough. Whatever y'all come up with, but
Okay.
fairness is fair.
We have two people that haven't spoken. Mr. Santos, were you raising your hand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, make sure your mic's on.
Yes, I was. I just wanted to make sure that I heard the attorney properly when she said the outcome of our process was fair. Correct? Isn't that what you said?
I said that your emphasis was that it be fair. I didn't say that it was fair.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Brownstein.
Just a
hasn't spoken.
quick comment. In my mind, we're elected to be wise stewards of taxpayers' money. And so the net effect of Mr. Rambo's motion is we're going to be paying $200,000 a year extra per year up to a maximum of 4 years. So that's potentially $800,000 in taxpayers' money when we know that essentially this same firm has been providing a quality service. So that's something that weighs very heavily on my mind, and I hope it does yours as well.
Mrs. Whitley.
Mr. Exxon.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Ike.
So that's okay. Just real, I want to make this. I've done a lot of bids, and I've had bids thrown out because I forget one page. And when the bid's due on a Wednesday, you're spreading the bid over 20 feet of table and making the stacks and double checking it. And make sure you leave on time. When a bid, there's a reason that something was put in a bid. Management and safety is paramount, and I would say management. I'm going to say this again: management and safety is paramount. To forget that part of the bid, and I would think that staff put that part of the bid in on purpose because they needed to know that management and safety was part of the integral part and workings of the company. We will undermine and compromise the entire bid process for more than $800,000 over the life of the town of Mount Pleasant by allowing this to continue. And I agree with Mr. Rambo and Ms. Whitley on their motion because there is, and this was not a money bid, this was a best value bid. So we are going to undermine the esprit de corps of the staff will be gone when you undermine everything that staff does. And I think that's shameful. We should not undermine staff. It was a fair bid from what I see, and everybody was given the chance. I've lost bids before because you forget to put a signature in blue ink, and I put it in black. When they call for blue ink, you better put the signature in blue ink. So that's my stance, and I agree with Ms. Whitley and Mr. Rambo. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitley.
Ms. Kotoff, I have a question for you. Did Pleasant submit bids as well?
Yes, ma'am.
What did they submit to?
There were a few withdrawn. So they submitted a bid for all the areas, and they withdrew the Pleasant Places withdrew the secondary roads and the secondary roads. So they did.
So they only withdrew Area 2?
Yes, ma'am.
So they would.
I'm gonna double check
Okay.
because we had a couple that withdrew.
Okay.
They had a bid issue, so they were requested to verify their bid. Their pricing for 19 areas matched their pricing for one area. They realized they had priced it incorrectly and requested to withdraw everything but secondary roadways. So when they corrected their bid, it was actually $812,000.
Okay, so,
Oh.
but I guess what my thought is this Pleasant Pegra, where Pleasant is owned by the husband and Pegra is owned by the wife, is that the town has said, we're not going to give all four to the same company because they can't handle it. And so to work around that, they created a separate entity that had never worked for the town in order to try to get all four bids and defeat the purpose of the town dividing this among four companies. Just like when we were talking about our short-term rentals and limiting that, and people, we could just create 10 LLCs and held one house in each LLC and completely work around the rule. So I'm done.
All right. Excuse me. We have a motion duly seconded. We've been in discussion. I believe it's time for vote. Unless there's any objection, we need to do this we'll try to do this by voice vote. The motion, again, is to overturn the appeal decision of our Bids and Purchases Committee, revert to the original awards of the contracts, and this will begin on October 1st. Is everyone clear? All right. So all in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
We'll have to do a voice vote then.
I think we can probably just get the numbers. You don't have
I
to.
think it was the Bids and Purchases
It was the
Committee
Bids
that
and
voted
Purchases
no.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
Eric and Laura.
Okay. Were you a yes? You were a yes. Okay. Then it's
As a no.
That was a no. And Gary.
okay. So by 6 to
So there
3.
was,
And you were
all right.
Brownstein, Mr. Chapman, Ms. Hyatt, and who else was a no?
Are you?
Mr.
Was,
Santos.
was Gary?
Hold on.
That was a yes.
Oh, you was yes. Yeah.
What?
Let's do a roll call.
So it's 5-4.
I think we should do a roll call.
Yeah.
Hang on just a second. Okay.
Mr. Brownstein.
No.
Mr. Brownstein votes no. Mr. Chapman.
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Hyatt.
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Mr. Icofano.
Yes.
Mr. Icofano votes yes. Mr. Rambo.
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos.
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley.
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mayor Heaney.
Yes.
Mayor Heaney votes yes. 5-4.
5 to 4. Motion carries. So the bids will stand as originally awarded. Let me make sure from legal that we are good. The vote is cast. Is there any other action required in this?
You'll have prepared for a written order that you'll.
Okay. Thank you very much. There being nothing for this more for this special meeting, we stand adjourned. Eric, we ready? Council members ready? Everybody's phone on silent, please. Good evening. Let me call to order the town council meeting for this Tuesday, September 10th. Good to see everybody here. I hope you had a chance to pick up our agenda outside. We will begin today's meeting with a moment of silence after we all stand in memory of 9/11, and there are several events going on around the area tomorrow to commemorate that. After which, and I'll ask the chaplain, Kenesha Gibbs, to end the moment of silence when she begins the prayer. So please rise, observe a moment of silence until the chaplain begins to pray.
May I invite you to pray? Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this leadership of this town. We ask that you bless everyone that is represented here today. We ask that you bless this meeting. We ask that you give them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Whitley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. We have a second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. The agenda is approved. Section 4. Hearings, awards, and presentations. We will get a 5-minute presentation on the state of the Chamber of Commerce led by President Kathy Herman. Kathy? Oh, she's way in the back. I wondered why I could not see you.
I always sit in the back.
Accompanied by no stranger to any of us, Rebecca Imholtz. Good to see you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Haney, Town Council members, residents of Mount Pleasant, for having me this evening. I'm honored to serve as the president of the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce for this year, and I'm excited to report to you the state of our chamber. So we're all about building business. That's what it is, building business east of the Cooper. And we have done amazing work this past year. This is all about networking. If you can see, we've done over 150 events and meetings in 1 year supporting our mission. We helped with 26 ribbon cuttings and anniversary celebrations. And we have a new program that we're working on starting this November with a veterans panel discussion made up of veterans and leaders in our business community. It's going to be an amazing event for our veteran-owned businesses that is going to take place on the most amazing place in Mount Pleasant, the USS Yorktown, in partnership with the Patriots Point Development Authority. So we're very excited about kicking off that program this year. More building business, partnering, and advocating. We appreciate the partnership that we have with the town of Mount Pleasant that supports all of our local businesses with our Biz Where You Live campaign. Dine where you live, get fit where you live, and shop where you live. We are continuing again with that campaign. We've worked with over 100 businesses in the town. We also work with the fire department, it's the Mount Pleasant Fire Department, and Rebecca was instrumental in that. So thank you, Rebecca, for organizing and participating in their 5-year strategic planning process. We had a great session that day. I hope you got a lot out of that, Chief. It was really pretty amazing to me to be a part of that as well. We're also continuing to partner with our friends at Just Be, hosting and promoting classes, as well as participating in their Lights and Love campaign at Mount Pleasant Town Center, their events there. And we also formed an East Cooper Hospitality Council, which is discussing hospitality challenges for our businesses here in the Low Country. One of our initial conversations was with Carta, the Low Country Van Gogh, and we're helping to educate the hospitality industry on some transportation resources. We know that could be very difficult for them. And of course, that council continues into next year as well. More building business, reaching our community. We started a chamber podcast, and we were very excited to have Mayor Haney as our first official guest. Really enjoyed that. We're releasing a new podcast every month, some great local business advice and just some great local Mount Pleasant business figures and
celebrity figures, we should say. Our social media outlets have continued to grow, almost 10,000 followers, and we have over 25,000 annual homepage views now, which is amazing. And we have our biggest networking event of the year, our expo, the 14th annual Business and Community Expo, which is next Thursday, 2 weeks from Thursday, the 14th annual at Omar Shrine. We'd love to see all of you there. It is free to attend, so please come. And then we also participate in local festivals. We do the Art Fest, the Blessing of the Fleet, and the Cooper River Bridge Run Expo, which is, again, one of our favorite things to do. Building business, forming connections. Know your lawmakers. A lot of you were there at our Know Your Lawmaker event. I thought it was simply one of the best events that have ever been put on. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come. We feel it's so important to know your lawmakers and our elected officials. And it was our 5th annual. We had it on the USS Yorktown, and we had a wonderful turnout. Attendees are still saying what an amazing event that was. And our chamber director, Rebecca Imholtz, is on the board of directors for the Association of Carolina Chamber of Commerce Executives, bringing information and resources back to our little chamber. And she also represented us as the National Association of Commerce and Chamber Executives. Great. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. And of course, Building Business is also giving back. So we support our community with programs and projects, including putting together 183 backpacks in how long? 28 minutes. 28 minutes. That's how many volunteers we had, which was all donated school supplies for St. James Santee Elementary Middle School. Every year we give away a $4,000 scholarship to a very deserving local high school senior. And we volunteer at Wynwood Family Services. We had a cookout for the residents. It was an amazing afternoon for everybody. And of course, building business means resources. So probably the most important accomplishment of this past year is we acquired our first ever office space. We had our ribbon cutting a few weeks ago. Again, many of you were there. Thank you so much for being there for us. 1,500 square foot of space of offices and boardroom, event space, finally a brick and mortar for our business community to take advantage of, offer in-person resources and online resources. And as we develop the business resource initiative we're working closely with your economic development team, Matt Brady, various business and community resources, including local financial institutions, SCORE, and the Small Business Administration. And speaking of our ribbon cutting, there we are. We look amazing. Can everyone see that? Isn't it beautiful? And we thank you again so much for coming. You're a wonderful municipal partner. We appreciate your support, and you enable us to have such an important president in Mount Pleasant, and we thank you all very much for that.
Thank you, and congratulations on opening the new headquarters. And will y'all stay nearby, because Mr. Demora next is going to do our Business Appreciation Month proclamation and give it to you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Members of council, those are your, I might need them, Kathy, here.
I can't see far.
That's okay. On your behalf, sir, I will read the proclamation announcing Business Appreciation Week. Whereas the town of Mount Pleasant is a business-friendly community that would like to show appreciation to the individuals that do business here and contribute to the growth and economic health of our community. And whereas the local economy of Mount Pleasant is stimulated by businesses that create jobs and employment opportunities, allowing citizens to earn money, support their families, and thus reinvest in the community. And whereas the town of Mount Pleasant supports the entrepreneurial spirit by being a community that not only welcomes new businesses but supports them by providing resources and offering assistance throughout the startup process. And whereas the town strives to build and strengthen relationships amongst local entrepreneurs and business owners, and create a supportive, open, and encouraging business environment that is inviting and attractive. And whereas the town of Mount Pleasant wishes to showcase and recognize the success of businesses within the community. Now, therefore, I, Will Haney, Mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant, proclaim September 22nd through 28th, 2024 as Business Appreciation Week in the town of Mount Pleasant, with the goal of providing a fresh and ever-evolving atmosphere to remain competitive, interesting, and a desirable destination in which to do business. That's Business Appreciation Week. We present this to you. That's right. We do. So thank you. And a picture. Sure.
Group photo.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Photo?
Yes.
Hold it. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your support, Mayor. Thank you all again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Item 5 on our agenda, approval of the minutes from the August special and regular meetings and the July financial statement.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second. We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. The minutes and financials are approved. Item 6 is public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please come up when your name is called, give name and address, and 2.5 minutes, please. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have several dozen speakers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will announce 2 at a time. If you'll come up in groups of 2, and when those individuals are complete, I'll call up 2 more. The first 2, Kent Moats and Lauren Sperber, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kent Moats, and I'm here today to support Jody Amante. I believe it is important to change the current home business ordinance to allow backyard swim lessons with no excessive restrictions. According to the CDC website, drowning is the leading cause of death in children ages 1 to 4 years old. The only way to help solve this problem is by making swimming lessons for young children more available. Allowing backyard swim lessons is how you do that. Seeing what Jody has taught our daughter, who is now 2.5 years old, is honestly nothing short of amazing. It's allowed us to have peace of mind, having a pool at our house and being close to the water and being close to Intercoastal, or go out on the boat, in the afternoons. At 2.5, she can now jump in the pool by herself, tread water by herself for 3 or 4 minutes at a time. And it's just really amazing what she's done for our daughter, and our 10-week-old will be following in her footsteps. So thanks again. Please support backyard swimming lessons in Mount Pleasant. Thank you.
Did we get your name and address, sir?
Kent Moats, 30 Indigo Point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here and for being willing to listen. My name is Lauren, 1665 Farmers Way, and I'm here in support of Jody. My kids have been attending lessons with Jody for a little over 3.5 years. And with that, I've been in her neighborhood and to her house hundreds of times. Not once have I ever heard or seen anything out of the ordinary. There's usually 1 to 2 cars in her driveway, occasionally a car on the street outside of her house, and the typical background noise you'd find in just about any given Mount Pleasant neighborhood during the day. Lawnmowers, dogs barking, sometimes a baby crying, planes flying overhead, mopeds, and the list goes on. None of these are excessive or would stand out to any person coming through the neighborhood. The ISR lessons Jody gives are not loud recreational classes. They are one-on-one private lessons that require a lot of focus on the part of the child. My kids have certainly cried from time to time at Jody's, but the vast majority of the time they are focused on the life-saving skills they are learning. How to swim underwater to reach a wall, how to float and rest in the water, and how to hold their breath. These are difficult skills and require a lot of focus on the part of the child. Not including the car ride home, it's honestly one of the quietest, calmest parts of my day. It's confusing to me that an in-home daycare where many kids could be outside playing, making all kinds of noise is permissible, yet these private lessons are potentially being subjected to arbitrary time restrictions. There is simply not a noise problem associated with these lessons, but there is a major lack of access and spots available for the kids in our community to be able to benefit from these lessons that could potentially save their life and teach them invaluable skills. I ask that you please not make the very real lack of access issue worse in trying to fix an issue that simply doesn't exist. Thank you so much.
Next 2 speakers are Rosalind Keels and James McKee.
Hello, how are you? I'm Rosalind Keels. I'm at 2092 Middleburg Lane in Mount Pleasant, and I'm here to also highlight the vital role of IRS instruction, Jody Amante's services in our community, and for the well-being of our children. And living in an area that has a plethora source of waters, this is a crucial skill. As Kent said, with drowning being the #1 cause of children ages 1 to 4, the skill is truly invaluable. My 15-month just learned to float on his own for almost 10 minutes. These parents and I pray and plead that you all will hear this request and lift restrictions for HBO. Thank you.
Hi, James McKee, 1247 Palmetto Peninsula Drive in Mount Pleasant. I'm here to also encourage you to consider the change to allow outdoor swim lessons as part of the home-based business ordinance. The need's clear, water everywhere. Drowning is the number one cause of death for kids 1 to 4. Swim lessons are very effective. So last year, after 3 children drowned within 3 weeks, MUSC published a call to action for parents. And here's what they said. Formal swimming lessons for children's ages 1 to 4 can decrease the chance of drowning by 88%. So swimming lessons are effective, and also they're very good for a home-based business. Why do I say that? It's one-on-one instruction, so small groups, low impact in the neighborhood. 2, it's good for an outdoor small pool, right? Hard to do that at scale in a community type effort. I hope in supporting this change to the home-based business, though, you would do it with reasonable restrictions. So noise is clearly a consideration, right? Everybody worries about that in a residential neighborhood. A big step that is proposed in this is limiting the students to 1 or 2, right? So the small number of students, not big groups, that would be allowed. Also, the town already has a very effective and stringent noise ordinance. So why not use that to limit noise? So since noise is addressed by those 2 points, I think maybe the arbitrary addition of time limits on how long you train the kids is only going to serve to reduce access. It's not actually going to help with the noise problem, but it's going to reduce the access of kids to these life-saving swimming lessons. The noise ordinance has daytime hours from 8 to 10:30. Why should swim lessons be restricted to something different? That seems arbitrary and doesn't seem to make any sense. Further, the restricted hours aren't imposed on other outdoor activities in the same ordinance, like daycare. So why are swimming lessons treated differently? So I hope you'll support this change to the ordinance with reasonable restrictions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, next 2 speakers, Jessica Smith and Mike Volpe.
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jessica Smith. I'm at 116 Civitas Street. I'm here today to support Jody Manti and the change to the existing home business ordinance to include home-based swim lessons. My son took lessons earlier this summer and had no prior swim experience whatsoever. We ended the summer on a high note, with him turning over to float completely by himself, able to hold his breath for short periods of time, and swim short distances at 2.5 years old. Please allow backyard swim lessons to continue in our community, as it clearly provides a life-saving skill that's necessary for the water-heavy lifestyle that we all live within here in Charleston. Drowning is the leading cause of death in children under 4. Children are an important part of this community, and I ask that you support to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Haney, members of the Town's Council, my name is Mike Volpe. I live at 646 Pelzer Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. In preparing to come in front of you guys tonight, I did 2 things. I looked up the noise ordinance, section 132.03, and saw that there's currently rules and regulations about noise emissions and quiet enjoyment of neighborly property. Second thing that I did is I went back and I read the obituary of a dear friend who lost a 17-month-old 4 years ago on July 30th, 2020, to a drowning incident in Charleston. I cannot tell you the challenge that presented for that family and what that has meant to us. It's personal. My wife and 2 children are here, and we are here to support the adoption of an amendment to the zoning ordinance that allows for home-based businesses with swimming lessons, and we'd recommend the removal of the 4-hour limitation. Why 4 hours? Why not 4 hours and 10 minutes? What if it was 4 hours and 10 minutes and that baby was able to do 10 minutes of ISR every day? Why not 4 hours and 30 minutes? If the concern is noise, then let's work it through the noise ordinance. If the concern is quiet enjoyment, then let's make sure we're precise in this. I love the fact that today's presentation or the hearing opened up with a presentation by the Chamber of Commerce, and the recitals talked about how we support small businesses and we're a pro-business community. We know from the recent inflationary times, when you constrain the supply chain, it results in inflationary pricing and challenges getting things. Why would we impose arbitrary regulations to restrict the ability to provide this needed service to the community in 4 hours? Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Zach Lawley, Jen Smith.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Zach Lawley. I live at 671 Kent Street. I am here to speak in support of Jody and no restrictions for swim lessons. And my main point is I'm again 671 Kent Street, directly to the left if you're looking at the road from Jody. I work from home. I'm a remote salesperson, on and off calls all day long, and in full certainty, I can say that the noise is not a problem by any means. For what it's worth, I have a dog that's hypersensitive to noise, and he sleeps all day long, never hears it. So I'm obviously in support of what we're talking about, but in general, just wanted to let you know from somebody that can see the pool from my desk that the noise is not an issue.
Hey there, my name's Jen Smith. I'm at 102 New Street. I'm here obviously on behalf of Jody to speak in favor of allowing the swim lessons to continue. Our 15-month-old went through swim lessons back in April, and if anybody here has dealt with a toddler, you know that trying to reason with them with anything is just basically impossible. But watching what Jody was able to accomplish, she was able to teach, again, a toddler that he needed to be, aware of the water. Before, he would just run in, and we are surrounded by water, whether it's boating, pools, the beach, anything here, and they just had no awareness. And now after watching through that, he was cognizant of, maybe I can't go into this area without help. But he, at 15 months old, could float on his own. I have watched Jody teach so many of our friends' kids, and the ability of even being in some scary situations at a beach. I remember a story specifically of a little boy she taught at 3 years old. He got torn out from his father with the waves at the beach, and because of what she was able to teach him, he was able to kick to the surface. I can't confidently say that. I've seen kids that have gone through her program and how they can swim. Please do not take this resource away from us. Allow our children to continue to take these lessons. As many of these parents before me have spoke, how drowning is one of the leading causes of death. Taking this away from us would just not be fair to the children. So please allow us this opportunity to continue these lessons with Jody. Thanks.
Ian Bowers and Connor Casey.
Good evening. My name's Ian Bowers. I'm at 655 York Street. I think everybody's made some good points. I'm also here in favor of allowing swim instruction to continue. I think the only thing nobody's really flagged is swim instruction is a seasonal business opportunity. So you're already being artificially limited in your time because you're running it during the summer months, whereas daycares are a year-round event. So I think the restriction should be at least as restrictive as what's allowed for daycare, which is less than 24 hours. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Connor Casey. I'm at 2205 Waterway Boulevard, and as similar to everyone else, I would like to voice my support in allowing backyard swim lessons here in the home business ordinance of this community. Drowning is the leading cause of death in children under the age of 4, and not only is this a serious issue for parents, but needless to say, this is Even more serious in a coastal community such as ours, water is everywhere and is pivotal for infants and young children to have the skills and training to improve their chances of survival under any aquatic circumstance. Jody provides a vital service to this community in training our children how to be as safe as possible around water. Not only does she provide safety, but she also provides confidence to children so that they can enjoy the pools, beaches, and many other water-based attractions here in Mount Pleasant. Being able to watch my 18-month-old daughter grow from an apprehensive little girl of only a few weeks ago to jumping into Miss Jody's arms to begin her lesson has been a blessing and has given me, her father, assurance that she will be safe in any unforeseen circumstances involving water. These are private, one-on-one lessons that last no longer than 10 minutes, and it's vital that Jody is allowed to reach as many families as humanly possible, so that no one has to feel the grief of losing their loved ones. It would be foolish to put a limit on this vital education for our children, and it would be difficult, if not impossible, for Jody to teach as many children as she does in only a 4-hour time frame. And therefore, I implore everyone here to take a moment to think about what is best for our children, parents, and the community at large. Drowning is the #1 cause of death in children under 4, and Jody is actively fighting this statistic. We must support Miss Jody in this cause and protect and develop our children properly. Thank you, and I hope you'll take everyone's words into consideration tonight. Thank you.
Olivia Williams and Alex Lloyd.
Hi, my name's Olivia. I'm at 3245 Beaconsfield Road. My husband and I were both born and raised in Mount Pleasant, and we're now raising our own 3-year-old here as well. Our daughter and every other child in Mount Pleasant is within walking distance or crawling distance of a body of water. Considering that drowning is the leading cause of death in children under 4, swim instruction access is vital to safely raising children in our community. And the only way to allow sufficient access to this instruction in our rapidly growing city is to allow backyard instruction. Backyard instruction is already seasonally limited to a few months in a year. Additionally, restricting to 4 hours per day during the weather permitting months would significantly reduce access to this life-saving training for children. Please consider changing the existing home business ordinance to include home-based swim lessons and be a part of preventing all childhood drownings in Mount Pleasant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Haney and members of council. My name is Alex Loy. I live at 351 Molasses Lane here in Mount Pleasant. I've actually grown up in Mount Pleasant. I'm here also in support of the change to the existing home business ordinance to include home-based swim lessons. It doesn't make sense that somebody can have a year-round in-home daycare, which is so loud, as just a nanny, I know that, or any business with outdoor time for that matter. But we can't have a seasonal business that is helping save infant lives. My daughter Poppy has had 3 rounds of ISR lessons, building upon her skills with each round. This year, she's able to swim. She's 2.5. As you've heard, drowning is the leading cause in deaths of children under 4. Of course, drowning is a fear of mine, as I'm sure it is of every parent, especially living so close to so much water. Jody has taught me as much about water safety and how to keep my daughter's tools intact as she's taught Poppy herself how to self-rescue. I understand that your home is your sanctuary and everyone deserves peace, but it's also a space to express your passions. And these instructors have a passion for teaching our young babies how to save their own lives. Yes, some kids cry, mine included, especially in her first round, but others are filled with glee and are so proud of their skills. It's a beautiful thing to watch them transform from babies afraid of water to kids so proud of their skills and wanting to show it off. To me, this amendment is a no-brainer, and I hope you guys will support that. Thank you so much.
Debbie Peck and Nick Owen.
Good evening. I'm here about the excessive noise ordinance 132.03 D1. We have been unable, I live at 1176 Holly Bend Drive. We have been unable to enjoy peace and quiet since we moved in 3 years ago. Our neighbor's AC unit runs for 15 to 20 hours at a time, nonstop. We've been seeking help everywhere. Finally, somebody from the land codes inspector for the town of Mount Pleasant's Department of Planning, Land Use and Neighborhoods found that the noise is excessive because of the duration, the intensity, the nature, the origin, the volume, and it's believed that the unit is in bad shape, and that's why it runs constantly. When we get home, we get assaulted with it when we come out of our car. We hear it in our bedroom at night. We have to go to bed with headphones or music. It's so frustrating that my husband, because no one's helping us get away from this noise, my husband will often sleep on the other side of the house to get away from this noise. We went to the police department, but they said, because I went to a bunch of places, but the police department wouldn't enforce it because it's an air conditioner. But I want to remind everybody here, because I'm seeking your help, that nowhere in the excessive noise does it mention air conditioner as an exclusion. It says, this stance is not supported by the town. They make no exception for AC units as a source of excessive noise and clearly states any noise from a building operation at any time that is plainly audible from inside of a residence of a receiving property shall constitute a violation of this section. Our neighbor, we are kind, we do not speak. She has repainted her house and today put in a very expensive yard. It's not like she can't afford it. So I need your help, and that would be greatly appreciated. I know my time is up. I want to. This is what we hear 15 to 20 hours a day, and we hear it in our bedroom. We hear it in our bathroom, and in the winter, it travels to the middle of our home. So I cannot get away from it on our porch. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we move on, how about if you're here with a small child and you want to speak, how about we move y'all to the front of the line and let you go ahead, because I know you got a lot on your hands, and everyone's welcome. I do want to just mention our duty is to hear what our citizens are saying to us, so we need everybody's help so that we can actually hear y'all. That would be great, but it's great to see all the families here tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, apologize for the extra noise there.
No apologies needed. It's a town. We love it, but we just want to make sure that everyone is heard equally. Yes.
Of course. Nick Owen, 302 Bank Street. I'm here to support Coach Jody. We don't have a pool, but both of our neighbors do. Many of our close friends do. And our favorite activity is to go to the beach. So water is a huge part of our lives. It's essential. My girls understand how to protect themselves in the water. Coach Jody provides a safe and fun, comfortable, accessible environment for learning. And now seeing my oldest swim back and forth in the pool unassisted, and seeing my youngest, who's not even 2, instinctively go to a float when she's released in the water is reassuring beyond words. So I hope that you do amend this ordinance to include outdoor swim lessons without exceptions. Thank you very much for your time.
Next, please, name and address.
I'm Katie Vincent. I'm at 527 Commonwealth Road. I'm here in support of amending the ordinance to allow at-home swim lessons. I'm sure you heard that I brought my 1-year-old and 4-year-old, and I hope that shows how passionately I feel about this change. Jody has taught both of my girls to swim and probably saved both of their lives. As my friend just handed me this pamphlet that's out front, and even in here it says that the leading cause of death in children 1 to 4 is drowning. So I would think that as it's our mission to keep kids safe, not just to watch them outside and play. And I have never pulled up at Jody's and heard screaming ever. But I can pull up at my house and I can hear all of my neighbors' kids screaming all day. So I guarantee that they're much louder than the occasional whine or cry from a one-on-one swim lesson. Jody teaches approximately 75 kids a year. And not only that, there's a ripple effect. I share videos of my kids swimming. She taught her to swim at 22 months and this one at 13 months, 14 months. And I've shared videos with all of my siblings. I have 6 in different states, and now they're all in swim lessons. So it's just the lives that she is saving. I don't even know how to count that. So I would urge you to consider changing this ordinance. Thank you.
Hi, Natalie Thomas at 3579 Passfield. Katie is the one who referred me to Jody. We moved here last year from Illinois. We don't have swimming pools as much as they are here. My son, as you can see, we braved dinner time coming here with the children.
That's why
my
we moved
son,
you to the front of the line.
I can't anymore, guys. My son learned to swim in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. This kid is swimming from end to end of the pool, and we are so confident in his abilities and his ability to save himself. God forbid he were in there by himself. I wanted to start initially by saying the pamphlet stuff. That's in the pamphlet that's out there, that drowning is the leading cause of death in children. Number one. Number two, the purpose of ordinances like this is to protect public safety. What is more of a public safety issue than our kids drowning, especially in a state where we have pools and the ocean? The second point that I've heard addressed a lot today is the noise level. These are one-on-one lessons for 10 minutes. You have no more than 3 children at a time in the space. They're not loud unless they're really little and crying because they're, learning how not to drown. And that's not a very prolonged cry. So, and it's during the day. She could play music loud and it wouldn't be an issue. So her lessons, I think, are over by 4:30 p.m. This noise issue really shouldn't be an issue. And then lastly, I just want to remind everyone, in considering ordinances and protecting public safety, we want to think about the benefits outweighing the risk. Is the benefit of teaching our children here in Mount Pleasant to swim and survive in case of an emergency, does that outweigh the risk, which apparently is someone being perturbed by some noise? So for those reasons, I wholeheartedly back changing this ordinance to allow instructional swim lessons. Thank you. And sorry for all the noise from these kids. We're going to go get dinner now.
Next, please, name and address.
I'm Meg Durasmo at 291 Mount Royal Drive. I bribed him by telling him it was our turn to talk into the microphone. But he lost and learned to swim with Jody at 8 months old. He could not truly swim, but float. He could, if he were put in water, he would float. He's a wild child a little bit, and there's kind of no better safety than knowing that if your child were put in a situation that they would be able to float or swim. The one kind of additional perspective that I have that maybe hasn't been mentioned yet is really just working parents. So my husband works full time. He's at work right now. My grandmother's home with my 5-month-old boy, so I'm here with him. But limiting hours or any sort of limitations really ultimately can make it inaccessible to those of us that work full time. When he's taking lessons, I'm taking 2 hours of PTO at the end of the day. We're not singing. I'm taking 2 hours of PTO at the end of the day to even get him to lessons in time, for multiple weeks on end. And so really just any sort of limitation, arbitrary limitation, is just kind of ultimately hurting or making it inaccessible for some of us that are already waiting months to get those coveted 4:20 p.m. spots, because that's really the only time available. So thank you. Can you say thank you? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Laura Pruitt. I live at 4232 Coolidge Street in Mount Pleasant. I think you've heard a lot of this, but here in the Low Country, where we're surrounded by water everywhere we go, it's essential that certified swim instructors be allowed to do what they do and protect our babies and children from tragedy. As a mother of a 15-month-old and another child on the way, it makes me sad that we need to stand here and defend the ability for someone to teach our babies how to save themselves in the rare but terrifying event that they need to. I'm also concerned about putting too stringent a time limit on their ability to do this. There are already established noise ordinances in place, so the proposed time restrictions are arbitrary and excessive. They would only serve to punish working mothers and fathers who can't get their babies there in the middle of the day and limit the amount of children who can benefit from these life-saving lessons. So I just ask you to please allow my daughter and unborn son to learn these life-saving skills.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you. I'm Michael Hull from 306 Hook Lane. And just to piggyback on what everybody else has been saying, this is my son Miles. He's 3-year-old, and we also have a 1-year-old. They've both been swim lessons. We've been doing them for about 2 years now with Miss Jody. And I just want to speak to the fact that not only the noise ordinance, but also the fact that Jody is in such high demand, and I know the investment that she has made for that pool was so that she could service everybody who wants these swim lessons. And so it's already naturally short season that she can do these because of the weather. And also a further noise ordinance would limit her. I know she has a huge wait list, and she does her best to get as many people as she can because she recognizes the life-saving how much life-saving this does for us. My son, he's probably went from the worst student to the best student. He's 3 years old now, and he's a little fish. And I just want you guys to reconsider this, and thank you for your time.
Okay, next to Laura Durotny, please forgive if I mispronounce your name, and Margie Cohen.
Hi, I'm Laura Deratoni, and I live at 1431 Barber Street. I'm here in support of Jody Manti. I have 2 little girls, and they started swim lessons with her when they were like 1.5 years old. And we've done lessons with her for probably 5 summers. And both of them have learned to swim. They had turned to float, can swim across the pool. One's on the swim team now. So she is very successful at what she does. And I'm very much in support of allowing these backyard swim lessons without excessive restrictions. I feel like putting restrictions on these lessons will prevent a lot of families from having the opportunity to have these lessons for their children, which are life-saving. We are aware, we've all talked about this noise ordinance. I just don't think when we're there every time, it's just, one child at a time, the next one goes. It's not loud. My kids were not very... if they do cry, it's like a whimper. It's not excessively loud. And I feel like the more opportunities, though, that she's able to reach out or to have all these families come and teach their children to swim, it will save lives. And we're around water all the time, the boat, pool, ocean, everything. I just don't think there should be any restrictions on the hours that she has to teach as many kids as possible. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Margie Cohen, 618 McCants Drive. Thank you for having me. So I have been hearing wonderful things about Jody for years. My oldest daughter is 5. I originally went a different route, though, and decided that ISR wasn't for us because I didn't want to hear my child cry. And she was incredibly cautious, and I didn't think it was necessary. And so I scheduled private lessons with her at a swim academy. It took a very long time for me to get in to get the lesson. And then it was 20 minutes every week private. And she was scared to go because the instructor would change a lot because it was young kids who something would come up or they would leave. And so there was a lack of consistency and she was very overwhelmed and I could not get her to go back and she became afraid of the water. And so last summer when she was 4, ultimately I decided to go ahead and go the ISR route. It's been a complete life-changing experience. She loves the pool now. She swims. It's her absolute favorite activity. I don't have to worry about it, and she loves being in the pool. And so I did it this summer with my she was 20 months when she did it. She's the complete opposite. She's not cautious at all. She would love to run into any body of water at all times. And so the comfort that I feel now knowing that she can float and swim to the side is amazing. And I just would like to say that, again, with the time restrictions, it was hard enough for me to get into a traditional swim academy for lessons. She needs to have that amount of hours to get, again, with the demand, as many kids want to get in that she can help. And I will also say my mom was like, I'm a total wimp. I don't want to come and hear her cry. So she waited in the car when I brought my daughter this summer, my youngest. And when I came out, she was like, oh, she didn't even cry. And I was like, well, she did cry, but she didn't even hear her. And she was sitting in the driveway. I live on McCann's. I love my neighborhood. I love my road. There's way more traffic and noise where I live on a daily than ever. In fact, I actually find it very peaceful to go to Jody's because it's the end of a very nice, quiet street. So thank you very much.
Elise Lawson and Sean Barnes.
Good evening. My name is Elise Lawson, and I reside at 1443 Glencone Drive. I'm here tonight also in support of Jody and the change to the existing home business ordinance to allow outdoor swim lessons without excessive restrictions. My son began swim lessons with Jody at 15 months, and by the age of 3, he was a proficient swimmer. I want to echo what everyone's already said, to be mindful of time tonight and just encourage you all to keep all of these things in mind. As parents and community leaders, our jobs are to protect our children. Any decision that restricts life-saving swim instruction in an area like ours surrounded by water is not fulfilling this responsibility. I urge you to keep that in mind, please, and thank you for your time.
Good evening, Sean Barnes, 1418 Barber Street. I think everybody should learn how to swim. Growing up here, you need to know how to do that. But the reason why I'm here tonight is I want to thank everybody. I was here, I guess it was last Tuesday, for the transportation and Brad and everybody working together, getting some stuff done. But it was really neat while I was there. I was listening to about the green space and the national average of people that are our age and our size, and it should be 10 acres per 1,000 people, and I believe, if I got it right, we're at 5 acres per 1,000 people. And as the mayor brought up, that this is a very expensive place, so it's going to be more difficult to find more green space. And then they also brought up some that I thought was really great, was about the land trust, because you don't know what people are going to do once you're gone and you get something said. I think that's great. My question is, I'm over there in the Indian Village, and Edwards Place was a neat place to go to, and now they bought that last section. Hey, listen, I understand progress must go on, but I'm curious: is there any spots in the Indian Village or Mount Pleasant, from where I talked about? Is there any green space in that area that we could think about maybe using that could help the community? I'm just, and I would like to learn more about these land trusts, if there's anything on that. And I just want to come up here and tell each and every one of you, thank you so much for serving and your time. Thank you.
Stephen Manti and Glenn Bianchi.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you again. Thanks for having me. Thank you for your time again. Steve Manti, 675 Kent Street. I know you're saying Manti. My dad and his brothers couldn't get it right either, so they're split in the middle whether it's Manti or Manti. But I've changed my speech a little bit here because there's a room full of people here. They all either went to bed or had to go get dinner. So we'll do it anyways. There's a room full of people here to dispute swim lessons causing noise issue. I know from these meetings, at least 2 members of town council had children participate in backyard swim lessons. And I ask, were there any noise complaints? Jody has used host pools at private homes and residential neighborhoods for years to give lessons with no noise complaints. The noise complaints are coming from one address and one address only. Actually, this address has a history of calling the police with noise complaints. This address actually called the police on my next door neighbor when she threw herself a 70th birthday party. Please don't put a 4-hour limit on an already air temperature and weather restricted service, swim lessons. There's a waiting list for these potential life-saving lessons. if lesson hours are limited to 4, there's a definite possibility that some children won't receive these invaluable lessons. Please acknowledge the voices and opinions of our other neighbors. Listen to this room of people that tell you noise is not the issue. Thank you.
Good evening. Glenn Bianchi here with my wife Barbara, 2080 Millbrook Court. We're also here in support of the ordinance to change and allow outdoor instructional activities, but without the 4-hour limit. We come from this from a slightly different perspective. In our much younger days, my wife and I were both lifeguards. My wife was a water safety instructor, taught swimming. She managed aquatics programs at 3 towns. I was an EMT. I had the opportunity to save a 5-year-old kid who got in deep water and was going down. As an EMT, I responded to a double drowning of 2 young adults in a pool, in a pond, that didn't know how to swim. Yes, on occasion, infants cry. We're blessed with that noise. It's a far better option than the silence of one who can no longer cry because they drowned. Noise complaints by one individual that's not a contiguous neighbor to the instructor is what instigated us getting here. Swim lessons are a seasonal activity, and outdoor lessons are limited to 6 months by weather. Current demand for this is obviously very high, as we've heard. Even at 8 hours a day, there's a waiting list for this service, an incredibly valuable resource for this town. So limiting to 4 hours a day significantly limits the number of infants that can be trained and benefit by this life-saving skill. So one single person complaining about occasional baby noise should not get in the way of the greater benefit for the children of Mount Pleasant. Please pass the amendment to ordinance 24029. Allow the outdoor swim lessons without the 4-hour restriction. Thank you.
Mike Waller and Jody Manti.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to speak today in support of expanding the home business ordinance to allow for swim lessons. This activity is crucial in my mind as a primary way to keep children safe around the water. Early teaching of swimming and water safety help a child learn a skill that can literally save their lives. As such, this activity would have minimal impact on noise to surrounding neighbors in that these lessons are typically one-on-one. Also, allowing for this activity to occur without excessive restrictions would ensure that children are given the amount of time needed so as to learn these skills properly. Thank you very much.
Good evening. It's me again, Jody Manti, 675 Kent Street. So, after going through the process of attempting to have the home business ordinance amended to include outdoor swim lessons, I've come to a conclusion. I do think that you're all in support of and understand the importance of swim lessons. The issue seems to be the alleged noise produced by this. The issue is that one house, 683 Kent Street, makes numerous calls and complaints to the town and the police department. The issue is that a call is made to the police department for a welfare check when my neighbor knows full well that I teach swim. The issue is that 3 police units were then dispatched to my home for this. The misuse of our first responder system in this manner, that's an issue. I'm not the issue. I'm a one-person, residential, small business teaching one child at a time to swim. I'm not running, nor do I desire to run a major operation on Kent Street. I'm not a commercial, big business public pool. Has anyone seen the sign statements from my neighbors saying that noise is not an issue? Why have the accusations of excessive noise that come from 683 Kent Street supersede the signed statements of the 7 families immediately surrounding my property? I'm just asking for you to please change the home business ordinance to include swim lessons, put restrictions in, make it that the person that lives at the residence is the only person that can instruct. No more than 2 students at a time. Pool is located in the backyard. Lessons are no more than, if you need to, they're within the hours of the existing noise ordinance. If you feel the need to put a limit on the number of hours, then do that. I'm 60 years old. I can only be in a pool for so many hours with kids per day. So 10 hours isn't happening. Thank you for your time.
Sharon Scott, Stacy Bacon.
Hello, I'm Sharon Scott. I'm here back again to speak on behalf of Alhambra Garden Club about Patchen's Post Office. In September 2023, Alhambra Garden Club reached out to the town to explore new avenues to promote the historic value of Patchen's Post Office, which was built in 1899 and was the first freestanding post office in Mount Pleasant. In October 2023, Alhambra representatives met with town staff members. At that meeting, Alhambra was advised by James Ward that the town believed it owned Patchen's Post Office. Mr. Ward advised us that if we disagreed, we should provide evidence. We proceeded to compile such evidence and found historical documents and informations, including the town council minutes of June 7th, 1971, evidencing the town of Mount Pleasant providing permission to Alhambra Garden Club to place Patchen's Post Office in its present location on the corner of Pitt and Bank Streets in the Old Village. Our attorney, Lewis Horton, provided all this information to Mr. Pagliarini over 5 months ago. We have had no response from him or the town, none. When might we expect the favor of a response? Alhambra, with the help of Town Council member Harry Hitopoulos, restored the historic building. Mr. Hitopoulos served 12 years on Town Council. Since then, as your historical marker notes, and as Mayor Haney stated on February 12, 2019, when he presented the club with the Cresco Historical Stewardship Award, and I quote, "Since 1971, the Alhambra Garden Club has owned, maintained, and promoted Patchen's Post Office," end quote. In closing, Alhambra would like to continue to work with the town for the best outcome for Patchen's Post Office and the people of Mount Pleasant. Are such relationships still valued today? I only hope that we are not too small to matter to the town. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stacy Bacon, 1893 Falling Creek Circle. I'm here to voice my support for at-home swim lessons. I have 3 young children, all of whom have taken swim lessons with Jody Manti, whose name I just realized I've been mispronouncing, for 6 years. And like most families in Mount Pleasant, we're frequently around various bodies of water. Access to swimming instruction is vital for the safety of the children of our town. Regarding the noise concerns, not all children cry during swim lessons, and the fact of the matter is that children cry and make noise for all sorts of reasons, whether they're swimming or not, my own children and my neighbor's children included. If the noise children make is problematic, there are steps that adults can take to mitigate the noise, steps that do not include making access to swim instruction more restrictive for parents who are merely trying to keep their children safe. I ask that you support this ordinance to allow at-home swim lessons without arbitrary time restrictions. Thank you.
Macy French and Chelsea Diaz.
Hi, my name is Macy French. I'm also coming to speak on behalf of amending the ordinance for at-home swim lessons. I'm at 507 Farms, but in the middle of a move. Jody is my aunt, and I am expecting my first child in November. I'm also a nurse and in school to become a nurse practitioner. And one of the first things you learn in school is what the primary causes of death are, which we've already addressed under 4, but then also how to prevent that. And so the first means of prevention, primary prevention, would be for the cause of death, drowning, would be swim lessons. As someone had mentioned, that MUSC had released that 88% of those drownings, both fatal and non-fatal, can be reduced by allowing for those swim lessons. I also, in my experience as a nurse, have had the unique opportunity of working in home health with children that are on ventilators and feeding tubes and just large, significant medical problems. And several of the children that I've worked with are non-fatal drowning victims. And I just have to really emphasize the importance of having access to these lessons. My husband's an engineer. He works full-time. Again, I mentioned I'm a nurse practitioner student. We have very, very busy schedules, but having seen what I've seen with these children that I've worked with, and also just knowing the importance of protecting our kids, I'm already on a wait on the list to get some lessons for my daughter next summer. And she's not even born yet, because I do know that those lessons are restricted, they're hard to access, and there are just so many people who are in need of them and long wait lists to get to them. So please don't restrict the hours any more than they already are restricted just naturally, and allow for us to have our private swim lessons to protect our kids, to protect our community, and just to really reduce that incidence of both fatal and non-fatal drownings. And in spite of what some may say about the noise, because kids they're going to make noise no matter whose backyard they're in. So thank you so much.
And did we get your address? I couldn't hear clearly.
So I'm at 507 Farms right now, but I work in Mount Pleasant. And
Got it. Thank you.
And Miss Diaz, Chelsea Diaz. Okay, Lauren Sims and Paige Sisa.
Strangely nervous about this. Lauren Sims, 3501 Flowering Oak Drive. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is a pleasure to speak with you tonight. My first ever public comment. I am here to voice my support for amending the ordinance regarding home-based businesses to allow swim lessons in homes, as well as to eliminate the gross restriction of 4 hours of operation for instruction. Do we limit any other business to 4 hours of operation every single day? If not, I would be first to nominate lawn care businesses, because talk about noise and parking restrictions in neighborhoods. But in all seriousness, why would we limit the one business that has direct consequences to the life and safety of our children? Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are only 2 public pools in Mount Pleasant, which has over 100,000 citizens at this point. So not only is there physically not enough capacity to host lessons in public pools, but there's also a historic precedence to offer unrestricted swim lessons in private pools. In fact, my family is one of many that proudly taught swim lessons in my grandparents' pool, located in Shimwood neighborhood, for many generations. And the town of Mount Pleasant themselves offered their recreation department swim lessons in that very pool for many years. So many of the folks in my generation, including Mr. Santos's children, learned to swim in that very pool. There is a wait list for every single ISR instructor and child swim school in this community. I know because I've sat on them. The need is there, and I've yet to see a valid reason for such restriction. Whether it's been more soccer fields for soccer players or SROs in schools, anytime the kids of this community need something, town council rose to meet that need, not restrict it. And while I'm sympathetic to the noise that may be generated, I also know that when you opt to live in a neighborhood, you elect to have neighbors who make noise, and children in pools. And last I checked, Mount Pleasant was proud to be a thriving community full of families and welcoming to children. And limiting the ability of our children to receive such a critical life-saving skill is most definitely not welcoming. Nor does it give those of us who work during the day a fighting chance to have our children instructed by qualified instructors. Miss Jody doesn't know this, but she did teach my children. And one day in the afternoon, while I was watering plants with my children outside, my 18-month-old son, who had just completed the program, fell face first into our pool while reaching for a toy. Classic Beethoven scene. And instead of panicking, I gave him the opportunity, and he did exactly what he was instructed to do. He flipped himself over and he kicked himself to the side of the pool. The instruction that he received literally saved his life. So my story is not the only one like that here in town. In fact, there are many of us who can say that about our children. So I urge you to eliminate this hourly restriction. The seasonal availability provides enough restriction. And like all the other needs you've risen to the challenge to meet for our children, I ask you to do the same tonight. Thank you.
Hello, Paige McKeithen, CISA, 2608 Alderley Lane. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thank you for hearing us out on this important issue. I've grown up here in Mount Pleasant, and as a mother of 2 children, I respectfully ask that the home-based business ordinance be amended to allow for outdoor swim lessons without arbitrary conditions. I think we can all agree that the importance of ISR lessons to our community and saving our children. And I think there is ample evidence to show that the business that Jody Manti is running out of her home is not a nuisance to the community or her neighborhood. My son takes lessons from her, and I can attest that there's no excessive noise. In fact, I've never even been able to hear the lessons from the street or the yard as we're walking up. The environment is very peaceful, and she has also a noise-absorbing fence. She has shrubbery, multiple trees around the area, and we've heard testimony today that her immediate neighbors have submitted statements that noise is not an issue. Her business doing one-on-one swim lessons is much less of a disruption than a home daycare would be, which is currently allowed under the ordinance. And my understanding is that it would allow for 6 children with an outdoor playground with no similar restrictions as are being suggested for the swim lessons. And so placing such arbitrary limits on hours of operation is doing a disservice to our community and putting our children at risk by limiting access to this important service, and it will increase the rates of child deaths in our community. We're simply asking for equal treatment and equal protection under the home-based business ordinance. Thank you.
Lewis Horton and Patricia Mitchell.
Lewis Horton, 138 Live Oak Drive. And as Ms. Scott has said, I represent the Alhambra Gardens Club, whose ownership of the Paget's Post Office had not been questioned for over 50 years. And when that arose, I became involved. My first endeavor was to document their claim to the ownership of the post office, and it was set forth in my correspondence of January 8, 2024. Various exhibits are listed in this correspondence, but they are not attached. If you would like them, if you will text me, I will, and give me your email, I will send those documents to you, but they're pretty voluminous. I'm going to leave this correspondence with you when I finish speaking. As a result of that correspondence, Mr. Pagliarini invited a proposal which was submitted on May 6th, which to my mind is a win-win proposal because it does vest legally ownership of the Paget's Post Office in the city, and there are various reasons which I understand have to do with insurability and things like that. But I'm really just trying to move the ball down the field and get y'all to have it addressed so that we can move forward in a manner so as to eliminate all the questions and resolve all the issues about the ownership. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Mitchell, 679 Kent Street, Mount Pleasant. I am Jody's Mantley neighbor, and I lived there for 24 years, and I know them for a while. I go to her house. Her house is basically in my yard. Okay, that's how close it is. So, for noise, there ain't no noise. Children gonna be children. I have 3 grandchildren. They cry when they go in the bathtub. So, so it's not a problem for a little cry. Okay? I go to her house. I watch what she do. She does an amazing job, amazing. So for my 3 grandchildren, I want them to go to her so she could teach them how to swim. And like I said, I'm right there. Her house is here. My house is here. Okay? So it's no problem. The problem is with the lady that lived in 683. Thank you.
John Hansler.
Good evening. I'm speaking in support of Jody and the new business or the business ordinance regarding outdoor instructional activities, for swimming lessons. So I live again. My name's John Hansler. I live at 676 Kent Street, and I'm directly across the street. And I just want to make something clear right from the beginning. There has never been a noise issue, not once, right? Not outside, not inside. My house is 1,200 square feet. It's not exactly like the east wing versus the west wing, okay? So, and I'm federal employee for 15 years, so I thought I'd throw a little, joke in there for that. So, no issue with cars or anything else. So I hear a lot of, I've been there since 2008. But I haven't seen, like I said, any noise issues and, I telework, so I work from home, so I'm always there. I work a lot outside. It hasn't bothered me outside, like I said, inside. And so I'm not really, the perceived noise issue just doesn't exist. Okay. And I know this isn't related to swimming, but my family, right, has gone through a lot of tough times with losses, right? Just a lot of grieving. 8 family members in 12 months, starting with my dad, all unexpected. My mom had a stroke or mini stroke, if there is such a thing, the same day, right? And I just can't help but think that as a community, as fellow citizens, that we wouldn't enable other citizens to save lives and to avoid the type of grief that me and my family have gone through, right? And I'm sure every single one of you have gone through. What does that say about us as a community if we don't enable that, right? The ability to save lives, especially children's lives. These are our next door neighbors, right? These are our citizens. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone who did not have the opportunity to sign up? All right. Thank you very much. Give me just a second while I
I think Gary's.
Mayor.
I think Gary might be getting it. Oh.
Nope, he's going to give someone a hug. All right, that closes item 6, public comment. This moves us to item 7, consent agenda items. Do we have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second on consent agenda items A, B, C, and D. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Final
Consent
readings
agenda is approved. Go ahead.
of consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
This brings us to 8, planning new business. There are no new business items, old business. Item B. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mayor Heaney. So I was the lone vote against this because of my concern about the noise. Hearing from the community, hearing about the public safety, I think that we should, I've changed my mind, basically. But the way that I've changed my mind, I have some proposals that I want to just throw out there. I'm not going to put it in the form of motion, but I just want to discuss. Can we see what the current first reading indicates?
Yeah, so the first reading indicated number 1 through 4 in red below.
Okay.
And then number 5 came out of the last committee meeting. Because when we originally brought this to you, we didn't want it to be so limited that we're back before you, because if somebody wants to do a golf lesson or a fishing lesson. So the language said including, but it should say but not limited to. And what came out of the last committee meeting is that should be removed and that it should be swimming only.
But that would have to be an amendment.
That would have to be an amendment.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't think that we should limit it to swimming lessons only. Because I think if we're talking about public safety or about wellness, there are people with a garage that they open up and they do coaching on their lawn or whatever. They do those kinds of things, and we want to promote wellness in the community. If we're going to restrict, if we're going to encourage business, then we should encourage it. The common comparison that I've heard multiple times in public comment was comparing this to a daycare. But the daycare falls under a special exception use, which requires approval by BOZA.
Correct.
So my proposal is that we remove the hours restriction. We let the noise ordinance take precedence. We keep the 2-student limitation. We keep the parking limitation. I don't think we should make it owner occupied, because what if I'm a traveling swim instructor and I don't have a pool, but I'm a swim. I could visit 10 pools a day and give those lessons at those pools at 10 different locations in town. And if we're trying to promote public safety, let's promote it. But what I think should be the restriction is that we should make it like a daycare and require that way it's not opening the floodgates. We're not suddenly allowing outdoor businesses throughout the town everywhere. What we are doing is creating an opportunity for people who get properly licensed and file the application with BOZA to have their outdoor business. And I think no restrictions on hours and no restrictions on owner occupied, because if I'm trying to get fit. If I want to hire a personal trainer to come to my front lawn and do some outdoor hot yoga in the summer, I think I should be allowed to do that, right? And we're talking about and hearing from all these people about what the amazing things that their children have accomplished in saving lives. I think that's my. I don't want to put it in form of a motion yet, but that's my throwing it out there.
Would you consider, and I know this isn't a motion, would you consider, though, if there is an existing short-term rental license there, that those not be used?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
First of all, I would like to make, before amendments, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Then, secondly, I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to remove item 1.
Second.
Okay.
So, just a second. Let me make sure I got it. All right. Remove item 1. Okay.
Yep.
Which is
with the
4
unnecessary
hours
hour restrictions.
You still have the 4, yes.
So we are a family first community. I mean, we are a suburb. That's how this town was built. Hearing all of the testimonies tonight, I mean, we should be giving Miss Manti an award for her incredible contribution to this community. But instead, she has to come back before us time and time again, and we put her through the ringer. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that the discussion has gotten to this point. Let's get her back in the pool, saving the lives of this community's children, remove the unnecessary restrictions, and get her back in the pool.
And if I may comment, and Mr. Mancini's here, we can't tell you what to write, but it would be helpful. This council never took that right away. This council discovered through a citizen petitioning their government, which is a constitutionally protected activity, that activity was not allowed in an ordinance that was passed. Ms. Pagliarini, do we know when that was passed?
Many years ago.
Many years ago. Has not been debated in my years here, which is 9, and Gary, you're senior to me, about 20. So I don't know any council that took that right away. This council has been debating making sure that right exists. And I just want to get that out there, because some of the speakers acted like we were the people saying, no, you can't do that. No, we found out you couldn't do that, and we're looking for a way. So anyway, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think most of the other first responder in my entire career.
Microphone.
My mic is on.
All right. Boom into it. There you go.
Being a first responder my entire career, I've had the misfortune of responding to drowning calls where it's been a tragic outcome. I've also responded to those where I personally, too, have pulled a child from the pool. And I recognize the importance of these swimming lessons for our children so we don't have to see those tragedies. And it's been many, many years since I've gone through the police academy, but when I went through, we had to go through drown proofing. We had to jump in, deep in, full gear, everything on, and tread water. But again, because we're around water, and that's no easy feat for a lot of people to accomplish. So I recognize how important these swim lessons are, and we heard from our families in here. Again, I'm talking from my perspective, being a first responder, and what I've seen, what I don't want any first responder to ever see again. I agree about the hours. Remove the restriction. We have a noise ordinance. Let's use it. Let's apply it the way it's supposed to be applied. So, thank you.
Okay, so the discussion we're in is on the amendment to remove item 1. That might save us a little going around. Yes, sir.
I just have one question as well on that motion to amend. Can we, Mr. Pagliarini, can we do anything about parking on the streets of Mount Pleasant? I'm down. I just don't. Can we even do anything about parking? So why have it? There's no parking allowed on the street, I think is what that said. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
That exists already. So every home-based business we have, this is our ordinance, and it says that you have to meet your parking off street. So that's already in the ordinance for all home-based businesses.
Okay, and just so I do understand, if the officers are called, would we do anything about a car parked in the street?
You'd have to ask the chief that question.
I guess. I mean, that's Mayor. I just don't want to weaponize things.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying. And I think at the town of Mount Pleasant, I can just go park on the street anywhere I want. And I think, I mean, a beautiful story came in here with the amount of people that came in, and maybe might not be noise next time. It might be chief getting a phone call every day that there's a car parked in the street, and if the chief can't really legally even do anything about a car parked in the street, which I don't think we could do at the town of Mount Pleasant,
Well,
it's going to be a big resource being used.
I think the distinction is if that is my home and my residence, I can park off street. But we're talking about a business, a home-based business. So that is the distinction with the parking.
I just want to make sure that we're just he's just not going to be getting a phone call every day.
Right.
And we're utilizing those resources.
It is deeper because we have parking requirements for all of our
all
businesses.
businesses.
Okay.
And so that is the equivalent.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Stamper.
Yeah, just a quick one. I was born and raised in Shemwood, and my swimming lessons were my brother pushed me in Shemwood Lake and told me to swim or drown. So I learned how to swim really quick. But anyhow, I agree with everybody. I think it's very important that these kids learn how to swim at a very young age. We've got beaches here, we've got pools here, and there's water everywhere. And so I really support this and think that we ought to do that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. It was a treat to see all of the families and children here today. I only wish that something like this would have existed when I was teaching my son how to swim. This was at the YMCA in Beaufort, and it's a very chaotic group class experience, and left my son traumatized from the water for quite some time. Just echo what the others say. We're already allowing daycares, which presumably would service more children and make more noise. Charleston, we're not alone in experiencing this. Charleston recently amended their ordinance to also allow these types of classes, and from what I've gathered talking to the council members there, have not experienced any problems with their ordinance change. So I'm all in favor of it, and really appreciate all the families coming out tonight to make their voice heard.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I
just remember we're on the amendment. We're not on the ordinance yet. All right. All in favor of passage of the amendment, which is to remove item 1, which is the 4-hour per day limit, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passes unanimous.
And then I would like to move in line with the discussion of daycare to put this entire section in with the home-based daycare without restriction of what kind of business. I mean, I think we also live in inflationary times where, I mean, I see it all where the mom group people are always looking for a side hustle and something where they can help make ends meet in their home. And if we're going to allow one kind of business outside, I don't think we should be discriminating against other kinds of businesses, especially if there are other businesses out there that could be providing sort of wellness or safety sort of outdoor instruction.
I'm not sure I'm clear on
Okay,
the.
so the
on
amendment
motion.
is to move items 2, 3, and 4 under the section as the home-based daycare to make it a special use exception. So that we're not opening the floodgates to the entire town, everyone opening a home-based business tomorrow, but still a process for approval.
2, 3, and 4 to where? I didn't get that.
To the home-based daycare
Okay.
section. So right under the similar requirements to the home-based daycare.
Right. So there would not be any conditions attached to the ordinance. The conditions would come to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which currently attaches conditions to home-based daycares.
Got it.
Okay.
So that effectively, you have to go to BOZA to get permission to do this. Is everybody clear on that?
Mhm.
Okay, so, we need a second on the amendment. And we have a second for Mr. Santos. All right, we're in discussion. Yes, sir.
Mr. Haney.
Mr. Brownson.
My concern with that is tonight we experienced a great number of families coming out to tell us why these classes are important. My fear is that we're placing an obstacle that's going to require all of these people to come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I just don't know that that's appropriate, and that may be a insurmountable hurdle for some folks. So for that reason, I'm opposed to this amendment.
Yes, sir. Mr. Arfon.
I appreciate GM bringing this up because it is important, right? If you want to do yoga or something like that, my only fear is that this being denied as we go through all of this. You know, the swim. We as a council right now, I believe, we haven't taken the final vote, but it sounds to me, I can assume that all of council probably wants to allow these swim lessons after what we heard. And I hate for that to fall into the hands of BOZA, but then I agree with Ms. Whitley in the fact that I don't want to see somebody do, yoga instructions get turned down or things like that. So I don't know how, Mr. Pagliarina, you open up home-based businesses that fall under the ordinance under the noise ordinance, if that makes sense, because I don't think this should leave our hands today to go into somebody else's hands to make the decision on these swim lessons, is my fear. So is there anything that we can do about that?
So, Mayor, as all council may be aware, and especially committee, this came from staff with more than just swimming. It was a allowable use for other home-based businesses. So there are two ways to do it. Either that way it was originally drafted by staff, or as a special exception, which is the proposed amendment.
Are you asking me to recommend? Yes.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Of course, when all this started, we weren't targeting one business. We have to consider the town as a whole. And the idea of going to BOZA, I feel like, does open the floodgates. That there's been a reason that we haven't allowed outdoor businesses, and this is why the committee added swim lessons only, because we felt comfortable with that as a public safety issue, and there's been a reason that we haven't allowed outdoor home-based businesses, and this is to me an exception, and I'd rather not open it up to anybody. If something else comes up as a safety issue that we want to consider, we can do the same thing. But if we just say anything can go to BOZA, then we could really get anything that council really has no authority over, because BOZA would make that decision. And this I feel comfortable with, without them having to get special exception consideration.
All right. Other. Yes, sir. Mr. Chapman.
Yeah. Mayor, I think there are two issues that are involved. One is home-based business, the other is noise. What we need to do is take this issue of swim lessons and let those two existing ordinances handle it, period. My only question is the number one, which we've omitted the time. Is that 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.?
We took all of number 1 out. That's already been voted.
I know that. But what in home-based businesses, is there a time limit?
No, sir. That would the noise ordinance
Noise
would control noise from that perspective. If you're asking it in that context, but as far we don't restrict businesses on the hours that they can
I just want to
operate.
make sure of that
Right.
that there wasn't any restriction in either of those two businesses.
Okay.
So, and so I'm going to go against this suggestion to send it to Boza. I really think we're missing the boat. There's only two ordinances that need to be involved: noise and home base. Period. And we restricted it to swim lessons. And if there's another home business that we're not dealing with, we'll deal with that then.
Ms. Willie?
So I guess my question is, we still have to have an amendment to restrict it to swim lessons. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think if that seems to be the trend, then I'll withdraw my motion to move
All
Senator.
right. Do you withdraw your 2nd
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay. All right. Let me hold on a second. I'm trying to keep track here. Handwritten.
And I'll move that we limit it to swim lessons only.
Second.
Okay. So
One
the third.
point of clarification: when I heard the removal of the number one, I heard the 4 hours, but the 10 to 7 was also removed.
My motion to amend was clearly to remove all
All
of
of number one. Okay,
All of number one.
got it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second to limit to swim lessons only, which when I originally heard this at the committee level, I thought there's no way that's legal, but we hear that it is. We have checked.
Yes, sir. We believe it is. We believe it is under the safety, as was just mentioned by Ms. Hyatt. We believe that it's allowable to do that as an exception, and not that there's safety in numbers. But this is also just for clarification how the city has passed their ordinance.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. If no one else will make it, I would like to move, the chair would like to move that this does not apply, that any short-term rental with a license, I don't know that there are any, but this is for our residents and this is for our people, and the noise of it is to deal with our residents, and I do not want to see somebody renting a short-term rental for a weekend, lining up swimming lessons, taking advantage of this, and then leaving the community. I don't think that's in the spirit of either of the swim lessons or the short-term rentals. So my motion would be any residence that has a short-term rental license may not engage in this home-based business of swimming only.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
I certainly support that. I just brought up one other item. I know of families that have brought in a swim instructor to their house who have a pool. I know that they wouldn't have a short-term
That has
rental
nothing to do with
license, so it wouldn't have anything to do with this amendment. However, would that also be allowed under this ordinance if somebody were to call and complain? Or
This ordinance would be allowed town-wide, but they would have to have a business license.
yeah, so the person coming into the home would have to have a business license, but they could technically do it at the client's home as well.
Yeah.
Well, the business license is for
As
that
to the-
specific address.
That address, that pool, yeah, right.
Ignore it. Just forget that.
That's one of my favorite TV shows. There's the law, and then there's what is done. Yeah.
My bad.
All right. So the motion and the second is on short. Is
Yeah,
no
I
short
think,
term.
Mr. Rambo, I don't, as a practical matter, see us parsing that. I mean, the example is, if I'm called to a scene to offer emergency legal advice, I don't have to do it at a certain location, right? I don't think we're going to run into that problem. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on limiting it? No short term rental. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Are there any other proposed amendments? Did what is in what we will be voting on, does it limit it to 2 students? It does limit to 2.
Yes.
Okay, that's still in there. All right. Any other motions before we vote on the, and we had a motion at the beginning made by Mr. Rambo before his first amendment. We had passed 1, 2, 3, 4 amendments. Any discussion on the ordinance as amended? All right. All in favor of the ordinance as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passage unanimously.
Final reading, ordinance number 24029.
This moves us to item 10A1, new business. This has to do with establishing a commission on recreation commission, and the chair recognizes the
Yes.
chair of the committee.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say the
Chair.
same. That I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution as recommended by the HRE committee, and I think I have a secondary amendment, but my primary amendment will be to approve.
All right, I'll do the same for you. I did for Mr. Rambo first. Let's get the second.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second now. Any your amendments?
I'd like to, instead of having the members chosen as a slate by committee, I move that members are reviewed and chosen by full council.
Second.
That's in item 2, where it says reviewed by Health, Recreation, and Events Committee. So we would take that out, and it would be like every other commission where all of council sees all the applications and we vote on all of them. Okay. All right. So is everybody clear on that? That is in section 2. And it has to do with the fact that all of council will see all the applications, and just like every other commission, we'll vote on them. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Eichfon.
Is it like every other commission?
The vote process will be like that's not a general statement on the entire commission.
Okay. So the other commissions decide. The other commissions decide the slate and then bring it to council. So this commission is going to be brought.
No. What other commission do we have where?
No, I'm asking. You're saying the committee is picking or not picking?
Is not picking. That we're going to see all the applications and discuss in executive session, come out and vote.
Okay.
Without there being a slate.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of the amendment as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Ms. Hyatt. Yeah. I'm sorry, Ms. Chapman.
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion that this committee be a committee of special issues, and special issues that are submitted to them by the Recreation Commission or a Recreation Committee or full council. And I ask that because what I'm thinking is there are specific items that will be sent to them. There are other items that, unless the chairman of the Health and Recreation Committee submits, should not be discussed. And so I'm suggesting that we rename this the Special Issues Committee for Recreation.
Special
Issues
Committee
for Recreation.
for Recreation. All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
All right. Second by Mrs. Hyatt. We're in discussion.
Go ahead, Ms. Hyde.
I was just going to mention that there is part of this resolution that mentions that the agendas will come from committee or a vote of council.
It doesn't say vote. It says council. We're that motion sort of blends two aspects of it, which I'm a little concerned about, because control of or where the agenda comes from and the name of the committee are two separate issues. I'd like to sort of see separated, if you don't mind.
Mr. Chapman, my understanding of the motion was just for the title at this point. Is that correct?
Title, yes.
Okay.
Just for the title.
Just for the title? Okay.
And I offered that information
Gotcha.
as to why the special issues
Okay.
is used for this committee.
Okay. So this is just for the title? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wood.
I've expressed this to other members of council. I view citizen commissions as something that has a project that they achieve on behalf of council, and then it's submitted to the appropriate committee and council takes action. There have been other commissions like that. The only sort of ongoing commissions we have are planning and ATAC. Is that correct? And those are by ordinance. Those are, there's by what goes to them.
CAP.
Yes, those are
CAP,
those are standing.
Those are standing citizen
Correct.
commissions and CAP, right? Cultural Arts and Pride. So I think but I also think we need to be uniform in how our citizen commissions work. So if we're going to have the Green Commission and we're going to have CAP and we're going to have the plan, I think that they should be uniform in how items go on their agenda, uniform in, like, there's no council member that sits on any of these citizen commissions, and these commissions make recommendations to council. They don't take action. Like the Green Commission isn't telling staff what to do, right? No. The Green Commission is reporting to the Flood Resilience Committee, who then takes action. So I think the Rec Commission should be the same. Whatever they look at, they make recommendations to the HREC committee, and then they take action, right? So I don't know what that means verbiage wise, but that's what I think. We need some uniformity in how they're selected. We need, if we're going to have them, I don't think we should have either of them, but like, if we're going to have them, then let's make it uniform. Let's treat them the same, and let's make sure that their work is funneled upward into council, and the Flood Resilience Committee does their job and HREC does their job, which is to implement.
May I ask you a question too on that? How do you feel about council members individually putting items on committee agendas?
They have to go through
commission
the chair.
agendas.
They have to go through the chair of the committee. But if the chair refuses, then they can bring it to full council.
No, I'm talking about putting it on a citizens commission.
Like, I just go to the CAP and like put this on there.
Right.
I mean, I don't know who does CAP report to. That's HREC still, right?
Yeah. Well, my point is, we have a committee system established by ordinance for council that's supposed to be used. And I went through all the minutes, and I missed, I don't think I got printed the last couple. And for one thing, this commission is not elected. It's appointed people. And they discuss the capital improvement plan or recommendations or funding, coming up with funding at their June 23 meeting, their March 23 meeting, their January 24th meeting, and their March 24th meeting. That's 4 meetings at which they are discussing the capital improvement plan. Well, the thing about the capital improvement plan is that is something that people elect people to this body to do, and it is not viewed in a vacuum, because we have to provide public services, and we have to provide drainage, and we have to provide police and fire and lots of other things, and salaries and staff and all of that. And it is the only commission I know of that can put on their agenda something that promises something to the public. They build it up out there to the public as if this is an expectation, and then tell council, we want this on the capital improvement plan. And they do it without the ability to raise taxes, the ability to assign resources or staff, or the ability to vote on the budget. And I don't know, and you talked about uniformity. Is there any other commission that makes capital improvement plan? I don't know of one. And I don't think this one should be able to do that either. And I would like to see in item 1 there where it says what they can talk about is not capital improvement plan items. Because I don't know about y'all, but if y'all don't want to exercise that duty that the people sent us to here do it, then let somebody else do it. But they sent us here. That body is not elected. They are appointed. And they apparently yield a lot of influence on this council, because we got a unanimous recommendation a week ago today from the Health, Recreation, and Events Committee that a council member sit on there. And now, from what I understand from talking to council members, they've changed their mind because of pressure that's been put on them. So if they've got that kind of pressure and can exert that kind of pressure, imagine doing that if they think they can do capital improvement items. And then how are we going to fund police and fire, and how we, Chief, those fire trucks we just bought, how much money did that cost? $10 million? For all of them? Millions of dollars. And so when you sit in a vacuum and you say, let's do this or that, and I won't pick any one sport, I'm not trying to pick on a sport, but you're not responsible for buying fire trucks or police cars or drainage or things that cost us tens of millions of dollars. Man, you promise people the moon, and then this body, the actual elected people, has to work against a narrative that they're out there on social media promoting and telling people to contact us to do. And I don't think it works that way, especially when you impanel a committee that is perceived to have more power than the average citizen, because the average citizen doesn't know what's going on. You know, they know what's going on, but they don't know what's on every agenda to be there to speak. And next thing you know, we're promising all kind of things that don't take into consideration other things. And by the way, in the minutes, Councilman Icofano has addressed this commission 4 times. Councilman Santos has addressed it 4 times. I don't know, Councilman Brownstein, I didn't see you in the minutes anywhere. I addressed the commission 1 time, and that was to tell them what not to do on Faison Road, because if you remember, Faison Road was bought as an economic development tract, and without being asked by your committee or by council, they put it on their agenda and told us how to use an economic development tract and use it for recreation. We don't give our other citizens that authority. Why would we give it to unelected appointed officials? And it's time to get this resolution right. We're going to have a commission, but the authority to establish capital priorities, there is a grading system for that, and we have a committee structure that takes care of that, and that works. And that committee system works. Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've attended many of their meetings, and I like the commission because they are a group of folks that come together that want to see recreation do well. I haven't seen them make any decisions. I've seen them make recommendations, and I think it's important that we have a group like that, like we have other groups in the town, that can come together and look at things without us getting in the way, and then coming to us with their recommendations. We either thumbs up or thumbs down, but I think they need to be able to work on their own and then come to us with the information so that we make our decisions like we do other committees or other areas and commissions. I think it's important that we allow them the opportunity to work. We got a lot of good people on that commission that have put a lot of time and effort into our community with recreation, and I don't want to scare them off thinking that their opinion doesn't matter or doesn't count. So I don't want to see any council members on that commission. I want to see it the way it is, and let's let them do their job, and we can always turn it down if we don't like it or approve it.
So, Councilman, what changed your mind from your vote at the meeting last Tuesday that had the council member chairing it? I see y'all's hands. I'll come back to you in a minute. Yeah, last week you voted for a council member to chair that committee, and tonight you're saying at the committee meeting.
Mayor, just
Yes.
order some.
Yeah,
There's
we
a
have-
motion on the floor
Yes.
about the change of title, and certainly this is all relevant for this or other.
Right.
I just didn't want Mr.
I
Chapman's
hadn't
motion
lost
to-
my place. But, I mean, last week you voted for, and you asked to even be that appointed member, and tonight you're telling us that's not a good thing. I'm just wondering what changed your mind.
Well, just coming to the meetings and listening to them to let them work.
They haven't met since last
Listen,
Tuesday.
I offered to do it if they wanted me to do it, but there's been no offer for me to do it. I wouldn't mind if John was on it. The key is let them have their own commission and then report to us. And then at the Recreation Committee, where then we can make the decision and send it to council. But I don't think there should be any elected officials on there. That's just my opinion. Let them do their work and then come to us, and then we can go up and down on it. But let's not oversee them and tell them what they need to be doing.
Ms. Whitley.
Oh, no, I already spoke. There were other people who haven't spoken yet.
All right. So, Mr. Icofano.
I just want to mention that Miss Whitley did not get slaughtered the way Gary did for changing her mind earlier. So I think a person's allowed to change their mind is number one. There was nothing at her for changing her mind on the swim. Number two, I think I can't even believe we continue to have this discussion. Just follow the Green Commission. Stop making this so personal. It's not personal. This is a personal slaughter of a group of citizens that want to add their expertise and give their time to the community of Mount Pleasant. If I was all of them, I would quit if I watched this meeting. Why are we slaughtering them?
We're not slaughtering down.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Do you have the floor?
No, yes, I do. Thank you. It's so personal. I haven't seen that much direction given them. Give them direction. Let HREC give them direction. We wouldn't need commissions if we all just did our jobs. The only reason we have a commission is because just like the swim, hundreds of people came in here. That's why the commission was established. That's why the swim was changed or added, because the people are complaining. If we did our job, if the committee did their job, and I'm not pointing anybody out, I'm just saying, if we do our job, they're not in here complaining. We didn't do our job. The people spoke. We put a commission together. The commission, according to Mr. Chapman, not according to me, helped put together a $50 million referendum. Those were not my words. Why are we just throwing them out on the street? We got $50 million yet to spend. So we talk about fire trucks paid for by the citizens of Mount Pleasant. The citizens of Mount Pleasant said, we are willing to increase our taxes voluntarily with our vote. And a majority of the citizens voted to put $50 million into the town of Mount Pleasant and pay the interest on that through their voices. But we want to take away the voice of those citizens. And we want to put a council member. So you just complained or stated, whatever that was, that council members as citizens speak to the commission, and you brought up the minutes. But now we want to add, is it incestual? Can I use that? And put a council member on the commission, but a member of the council can't speak as a citizen, can't speak at the minutes, and they get mentioned. And now we want to put a council member on the commission to really squelch and strong arm their voice. We've got better things to do. Take the Green Commission resolution and apply it to the Recreation Commission. End of discussion.
There's one big difference.
Okay.
The Green Commission has nothing to do with or nothing to say about the allocation of public resources or the reprioritization of a capital improvement plan. And this is the only one that was ever established without a resolution doing it. And I agree with you on that point. We failed because we just voted to establish it and we didn't tell them what the rules were. And this whole conversation is to get the rules and to get the rules right. And by the way, Mr. Iacofano, at the October 2022 meeting, you actually spoke during an agenda item, which was agenda item number 8. So we do have council members going there, and I hear the council member that has been there the most saying that that's their voice. Well, why are you going if it's their voice? I worked with 6 of the 9 Green Commission members for almost 10 years. The only meeting I've ever been to was to welcome them and thank them. I have never been back.
So you do or do not want a council voice at the commission?
Do what?
Do or do not want a council voice at the commission?
At or on? No.
At or on is the same thing. In my book, on is even worse.
Because
point of order.
No. Just a second, please. You are saying it's the people's voice, and you're in the minutes at a meeting telling them what they need to do, which is go out and raise their money and use their position as
a private citizen. And I can bring up all the court cases. I can email them to you. That is perfectly legal as a private citizen to speak at public comment. That's all.
Okay, I'll change the subject. I just think it's ironic that someone who goes and tells them what to do is trying to castigate other council members for saying that council needs to be on there to keep it in the guidelines. So,
Mayor,
point of order. We are on
Yes.
Mr. Chapman's amendment. That's my point of order.
Which is to change the name to Special Issues for Recreation.
Correct.
All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
All right. Motion fails.
I have a motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rambo.
We need a roll call, I think. She does not, a voice vote.
There were 3.
Oh, I think there were only 3 or 4.
3 that were for Chapman, Hyatt, and
I
Haney.
second. Oh.
These 3. Chapman, Hyatt, Haney. Did I miss another aye? No.
I'll make another motion.
Yes, sir.
I move that the.
What was that vote? Mr. Mayor, first, what was that vote? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
6-3.
6-3.
Yes, Ms.
I'll
Chapman.
make another motion that the number of members be 5 members and no more.
All right, there is a motion to make it 5 members. Is there a second? Going once? All right, motion. Or do you second it?
No, I have a motion.
Wait,
I have a motion too.
okay. All right, that motion fails for lack of a second.
And
you
I've
have
not
another
spoken.
motion, you still have a floor.
I'll make a motion that we have 7 members.
7 members. All right,
I'll second it for discussion.
okay. There's a motion to have 7 members.
And I'll tell you why I'm making the motion. When the commission was originally created, it was for a specific reason before the commission issue. It was to help us pass the referendum, and they did a great job. Nobody can say they didn't. They did a great job. And they focused on that one issue, which is why they could do that. To have the number of people on the commission that we had once it became a town commission, as opposed to a group of private citizens trying to help us do something, were too many. It was done for each additional type of sport. We're not doing that now, I don't think. I think we're trying to have a group of citizens give us general information about what should happen with recreation.
Right.
Period. And that's why I'm making the motion to
Right.
try to get a handle on the number of people to generally work with the town committee.
I would like to add, I don't know who else has been through all the minutes, and if you'd like to be recognized, you can be recognized. If you go through the minutes, there are almost never 9 members in attendance, and sometimes for several there has not been a quorum, and so I think 7 members is certainly reasonable because it has been proven that 9 members is unwieldy and does not work. Any other discussion on the amendment?
Just
Yes,
real
sir.
quick, a point was brought up, so I just want to list this. And Mr. Pagliarini, if you have the original, that would be fine. I don't know if you need to check me here on this, but I believe their original purpose, Town of Mount Pleasant Recreation Advisory Commission has been established to assist and promote recreational offerings of the Recreation Department to serve as representative body of wide range recreational interests in order to convey the recreational needs of the community, staff, and town council. Organizational structure, composition, duties, responsibilities of the commission are set forth in this document. Apologize, staff, for keeping you here so long, but all right, just real quick. Number 1, the offering and promotion of current activities, events, leagues, lessons, and other program offerings. Number 2, current facilities, equipment, and supplies, I believe. 3 is fiscal year end statistics on the use of facilities and participation in programs. Am I right so far, Mr. Pagliarini? I don't know if
You are reading the voice vote and what was approved by council in 2022.
Okay.
Yes.
The offering of future leisure and recreation activities and programs, incorporation of and coordination with other entities, i.e. Charleston County School District, in joint programming, assist and advise staff in identifying potential volunteers, coaches, and sponsors for programs and activities. Other matters as may be approved or signed by the recreation director of town or by town council. Nowhere in here does it mention the referendum, and I don't think anywhere in the resolution did it ever mention the referendum. Is that correct, Mr. Pagliarini? I just want to make that clear.
I don't have the voice
Okay.
vote. I mean, I trust that is what was read and what was approved by council.
Okay. Then I have, if we want to submit this, I have all the answers to the times they answered it. But that's all. Just want to make clear that the referendum was never mentioned.
And if I may, let me read from the minutes of the Wednesday, August 31st, 2022, initial meeting of this body. After it was done, there was a welcome from Mr. Gerget. Public comments. The first public comment was Mr. Icofano of 388 Overseer Place in Mount Pleasant welcomes members to the commission and briefly mentions commission members finding support for the referendum. Mr. Ike Cafano thanks Perry Rourke and Recreation Department staff for advising the Recreation Advisory Commission. I'm just reading the minutes.
And was that Mr. Icafano or Councilman Icafano in the minutes?
Right there it says Mr. Ike Cafano at 388 Overseer Place.
I mean, this is, I just really wish the personal attacks on them would end. Just follow the Greek Commission and let's go home.
If reading the minutes is a personal attack. All right. The motion is to have 7 members of the commission. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Who were the opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. So the motion passes 5-4. Mr. Rambo and Mr. Santos. So we're at 7 members.
I have a motion.
Okay, Jake.
So, well, I'll make the motion. I move to amend the resolution to remove a council member, so a council
Second.
member would not be on there. Okay, thank you. So I am the one who originally kind of, I guess, came up with that idea to put one on there. I said at last month's meeting, I said at the Recreation Committee meeting, and in speaking with folks on several different commissions as well as several different council members, maybe that wasn't a good idea. We don't have council members sit on any other board or commission. So I agree with what Ms. Whitley said earlier, in that if you're going to have these commissions, they should mirror each other very similarly in how they operate. And so with that, even though I pushed that at first, I would like to see that that withdrawn. So that would mean that there would now be, I guess, 7 members of the public
That is how I understand
who reside in Mount Pleasant. I believe that was in there as well.
Okay, so the amendment is to remove a council member as chair.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I already second.
As chair,
Second?
Yeah.
Okay.
A question about that, if you will. Was it to remove the council member altogether, or
Altogether.
just as chair? Altogether.
Altogether.
Okay, thank you.
I will offer in discussion a comment. Mr. Rambo, I understand that, and I have come to that, but it has to have, because we had a commission that didn't have any guidelines at all. It was not like any of the other commissions. Yes.
My next motion after this motion will rectify that, I hope.
Okay. Because the reason we needed to do that was, again, everybody read the minutes. Don't rely on your perception of something. Read the minutes and see how this was operating. And it's our fault because we didn't tell them how to operate. Okay, we'll take the blame for that. We didn't do it with a resolution. We're trying to fix that now. So, Mr. Rambo, I will vote for that, but we're going to have other amendments to make sure we get it run right. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ms. Whitley.
I would like to move to have the agenda for the Recreation Commission. All items on that agenda must be submitted to the chair of the HREC committee for placement on the agenda. And that's the end of my motion. But my thought is that if that item does not go on, there are 9 members of council. So if someone from any citizen who wants to, not even members of the commission, any citizen who wants something to the commission to take it up can go to the chair of the committee or can go to any of the council members and ask us to place it on the agenda as well. And if it does not get placed on, and I think that will funnel it appropriately, and I don't think anything will drop through the cracks, because if it does not get placed on that agenda, then if it comes through a council member, we have the right to place it on the full agenda for council, right? Like if I ask you for something on PJL and you tell me no, I immediately have the right as an individual to place it on full council agenda. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
For a vote. Yeah, for a vote. So we have this committee funneling structure for a reason, and I think that this would help rein in the discussion of topics that are irrelevant to that commission, but then also would help support the work of HREC for, like smaller things that maybe would come up. So like, for example, when I was on the Recreation Committee, one of the first things I did was I had toddlers at the time. I wanted toddler time, right? Like I wanted toddler time. And so they put toddler time in at the rec center. It was like, you pay $10 and you can have toddler time. But that's like so small potatoes, right? Like that's like a small little tiny thing that's super easy to implement and maybe is something that would be, rather than council business, could be a commission making a recommendation. We should do this, right? And then and then HREC can be like, yes, So I think that we should do this, and that would make it uniform to the other commissions and help have some guidance for it.
And just to clarify, that does not mean if someone asks to put it on the Recreation Advisory Commission agenda and the answer is no, that it can go on the, that's only for council committees.
Only for council members,
Okay,
right?
I just want to make sure you
put
weren't.
it on the committee, right? If I try to put it on the commission, you say no, then I try to put it on your committee and you say no,
Right.
then I take it to full council.
Right, because the whole idea is to use the committee structure that we have. All right, did we have a second to that?
Yeah, Mayor, there's no second, but just before, for clarification, the motion reads to bring a matter to the chair of the HREC and
For placement on the agenda
For
of the
placement. And
Recreation
just for
Commission.
clarification, is that the committee decides or the chair?
The chair, just the
Okay,
same
so
way that
the chair
same way that the
individually
chairs
can
decide.
place matters on the commission agenda.
That way it doesn't have to wait till a committee day for a vote of the
Exactly,
committee?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
And there wouldn't need to be a second.
And Mayor, this speaks to my suggestion of changing the name.
Right.
Because the agenda would then have special issues that are brought up.
Right.
And the Recreation Committee would have looked at that as a special issue that we need their help on.
Right.
Just like we need the help of the Green Commission on certain things that we
Okay.
send to them.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brownstein.
So first of all, a question on your amendment. Is that replace, I guess, item 6, which is Rec Commission agenda item shall be approved by Town Council, the Health, Rec, and Events Committee, or the Town Administrator?
Or the item above.
Sure.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I've just been sitting back and witnessing the conversation. I think it's great that we have a group of citizens who want to provide input to our town on what is a very important issue, which is our recreation department and the offerings that we provide our citizens. I feel like all these amendments are designed to limit the input of citizens, to censor them, to neuter the effectiveness of the committee. I just think we should really be appreciative that we have people who want to volunteer to serve our community. And I hate that this has become so personal. I feel like we should allow them to be candid, to bring us their ideas, and it's our job to say yes or no. And so I think we're really overthinking this. We're making it different than another existing commission. And I'd really like to see us take a step back and not limit what this committee can discuss. I think we're all adults here. We should be, and we should be able to tell them yes or no. And I don't think the Rec Advisory Commission, just by discussing something, gives any false impression that it's something that's going to come to fruition. I've been to most Rec Advisory Commission meetings. I think I've spoken twice. Once as both times as a citizen, but once prior to my town council service, and then once after being elected, just to thank them for the great job that they're doing. I've never heard them, make any promises. I think they're just asking us, they're recognizing a need, and they're asking us to take a look at it. And I just don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think if you're talking about them expending public resources, I mean, just about everything that the Green Commission and other groups do, CAP, those all expend resources, and ultimately the buck stops with us. So I do think there's room for improvement in how this committee is being utilized. But I just think that some of these measures to limit what they can discuss are quite draconian. And I think they're contrary to the public interest, and I think they're contrary to a healthy democracy.
I'd like to speak to that.
Yes, sir. Ms. Chapman.
First of all, Mr. Brownstein, we have a committee structure of council. We've had it for a long time. And I've been living in Mount Pleasant since 1978, and I remember the committee structure. So it's not draconian. It's the way we operate as a town council. If you want to change it, go out and have a referendum and say, change how town council operates. It's like the chairman of a committee is supposed to be responsible for that committee. And council members who vote on something shouldn't go out and be sending stuff around different from what they voted on at a committee meeting. So my point is, we are a town council with required operating procedures. That was all done a long time ago. If you want to change it, change it. Otherwise, that's why we have a chairman of Health Recreation Committee. That's where we are. If you want to change it, change it. I would also like to say that once this is passed, we're going to be going out for invitations for people to be members. I think we need to invite the original members that were created in here, congratulate them, thank them for what they did to help us get things started, thank them for helping us get the referendum passed, and give them certificates and a thank you. Just like we do for the state championship soccer team or the state championship tennis team. They did a tremendous thing for us. All of my suggestions have been tonight to do something similar to the committee structure that we have, and also somewhat similar to what was originally suggested by our attorneys for the committee when it came first to the Recreation Committee. That was changed with amendments and all during committee, but the initial development by our attorney had some of these things in there. So I'll stop, but I do want to see us bring the original members in here before we have an invitation to submit to be on this new committee, the new commission.
All right. So the motion is agenda items be submitted to the HREC committee chair. That way it doesn't have to wait on a vote for a meeting down the road. Is there any other discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Rambo.
I guess I have a question. I think, again, Ms. Whitley, I think what you said earlier was that our commissions, if we're going to have them, should mirror each other. So for instance, CAP, who determines what's on the CAP agenda? The Cultural Arts and Pride.
In that circumstance, council could dictate, a committee could dictate, or staff could dictate, or I believe there are circumstances that the CAP membership could, as long as it meets with the ordinance requirement.
Could place.
Yeah,
could.
But they have a very specific. They're also governed by state law as well. So,
okay. So the Green Commission.
Right.
Who decides those agenda items?
The Green. So let me.
Because I just read through the Green Commission resolution and it actually doesn't say.
Doesn't say. Right. And just for clarification to Ms. Whitley's point, we have one commission that is codified, which is CAP, and then everything else is an ad hoc. Okay. Everything else is considered ad hoc, which is temporary basis. The Green Commission is 2 years. This commission was 2 years, is proposed for 2 more, but there is nothing in the Green Commission resolution related to agendas as far as agenda.
Okay, so I guess that still goes. So, like their most recent meeting, and I just looked up the agenda, and I'm on the Flood Resilience Committee. I haven't heard of a couple of these agenda items. So, who approved those, or how did those get added to those agendas? Was it the chair of that commission that decided that? Is it the chair of the Flood Resilience Commission, which
I think it's I don't independently recollect anything on that, on CAP coming from committee or council.
No, I'm saying. Oh, yeah, okay.
But to your point, generally staff for CAP, but the CAP.
Sorry, I was saying, what about Green Commission?
Oh, Green Commission.
Who decides those agenda items?
Okay, generally they're coming either from council. We've had it from committee. Our committee has sent a number of items to them, but there, to your question, there is nothing restricting the committee itself from putting items on that agenda as I read that resolution.
Yeah. So if there's a member of the Green Commission at a Green Commission meeting or talks to the Green Commission chair and says, you know, I'm hearing a lot from the community that we need to talk about these certain types of invasive species or whatever,
right,
then that commission chair could add that item to an agenda without any sort of council approval to just discuss those invasive species.
I would say as long as it is subject to their purpose, and it should not, if it is on there outside of their scope as dictated by council, it would not be appropriate. But subject to that, yes, sir, it could be placed on an
So
agenda.
really what's most important, what I'm hearing is what is the scope and the purpose of that commission? And really the agenda is guided by the scope and purpose, not one individual council member approving or disapproving what should go on the agenda.
Correct, and that's how we handle all of our ad hoc. For example, we had the Shem Creek Task Force, and they had a very specific mission, and anything on that would have been, anything on their agenda outside of that specific mission and purpose would not be permissible. And so it would be the same for all of our ad hoc commissions. Yes, sir.
Okay, but this one we're suggesting that only the chair of the health resources and a health event, whatever it is now,
yeah, well,
health, recreation, and events committee can unilaterally decide whether an item should be on the agenda.
Well,
isn't that what the motion is?
Right.
I guess I'm just trying to make it.
But we also need to make sure the council members do not use it to put items on the agenda of a commission.
Well, why if it's within the guidelines of that commission, if there's some sort of tree species that I would love to see the Green Commission discuss more about protecting and what this would be, why can't I reach out to the chair of the Green Commission and say, hey, have you thought about this, this, and this? And they can put it on there. It sounds like I could.
May
actually
I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, they know whether we show up as individual citizens and speak in public comment or whether we show up in our official capacity. They know who votes to appoint them or reappoint them or not to that commission. And a phone call from a council member, they're not going to say no. And the council members need, if you got something on trees or something like that, you need to bring that through the flood resilience committee or through the planning committee. And if we can just go and put things on there or whisper in somebody's ear to put them on there, we're going around the council committee system, which is also codified by law, which we were elected to be on and use.
But it isn't the commission structure to have commissions to provide feedback. And so, all right, take the council member part out of it. Any member of the Green Commission or the CAP Commission, as long as it is within their scope and purpose, can reach out to the chair of their commission and say, hey, I'd love to discuss this, this, and this. As long as it's within their scope and purpose, they could do that.
Yes, sir.
But in this instance, we're handcuffing the Recreation Commission and saying they don't have those same rights.
Well, I think the commission could request, if they believe there's a questionable item or something on their agenda, they can certainly make that request that something be on the agenda. So I'm not sure I'd go as far as to say that they're not allowed.
I guess I'm just trying, I guess, again, in the spirit of making commissions equal, I think it's exactly what Ms. Whitley said earlier. If we're going to have commissions, they should have the same rules and guidelines.
Right. If you would read the minutes, you would see they are not equal with any other commission in this town. The amount of work that staff is getting, and I won't pick on any names, but there are things in here where commission members are asking about certain pieces of equipment and where they're being used and when they're being replaced and all that. And that's not what the commission was designed to do, or to have staff get back and talk about fences and things like that. Again, I've read the minutes. I've read all of them. And we don't have another commission that is allowed to operate this way and in effect direct staff. Heck, we as council members and mayor, we can't direct staff. But we, and Mr. Brownstein, I do take exception with one thing that you have to say. Democracy is about elected officials being answerable to the public. and we were elected to either succeed or fail at governing this town. And I mean, I know several times staff has had to get up and tell this commission, you cannot direct staff. More than once, it has gotten back to me. So we're trying to correct something. We're trying to keep it, have it function correctly, and correct some wrongs that have for 2 years. And again, lay that failure at our feet, because we never did a resolution saying what their purpose and what their guidelines are.
I have a question.
You have the floor.
Mr. Kirk, can I ask you a question? Did the tennis program, or did the April gift that's on the commission get the town of Mount Pleasant a $5,000 check donated to the town of Mount Pleasant? Is that correct? $5,000. Okay. And before citizens would have come in to complain, did the commission help to keep the pool open out at Park West? And not only help keep the pool open, did they also find somebody to provide the restrooms that allowed to keep the pool open while in construction and the pool to never close? Am I correct in that statement?
I wouldn't say that the commission did that, but Michelle, who serves on the commission,
Michelle, who served, an involved citizen, Michelle Cormack,
who's involved with the swim team, that had an interest in keeping the pool open.
who's probably energized by being on a commission and having her voice heard, got a restroom paid for by the town of Mount Pleasant or paid for by outside? Split. And what's the split? It's $5,000, I think.
Mayor,
Sorry.
point of order. Do
Yes.
we have
Okay, but
do
I
we
mean,
have an item on the agenda
We
that we're voting on right now?
Well, I mean,
we do.
We just wait. We
Do
just
we
said
have
that
an item on the
we
agenda
said that the Green
that we're voting
Commission
We do. That has to do with the agenda.
Okay,
Yes.
the Green Commission has the ability to decipher that they're intelligent enough on what items can go on the commission, but the rec commission members are not smart enough to put what's on the commission.
That's an objectionable. Nobody said that.
Pretty close.
No. Okay. Well,
Okay,
if you want to start the name calling, you go ahead, Mr. Wright. Fine.
Go ahead, Laura. Laura had her hand up here. I'll let you speak out to Laura.
I think what Miss Whitley is trying to do, I know like our planning commission, they don't just put things on their agenda that comes from staff or comes from council.
And I'm happy to amend it to include staff recommendations as well beyond there. But I would also like to amend it further that this commission, that whatever's on the agenda is funneled upward to HREC, right? Like this commission makes recommendations to HREC, like they don't direct staff.
Right.
Is that
Yeah.
That's good.
But yeah, I think
Second.
this motion is just for council to be involved in what they're talking about. I don't see anyone denying anything that they want to talk about. And if we did ever have a chair of rec that would refuse anything, it still comes to council. And they're only one person. So her motion is for council to make a decision of what they get to talk about. So, I mean, the purpose of it is for them to advise us and for us to ask them to go out and do things for us. So, assign them a task, which is why I thought it should be called, Recreation Task Force or something. But anyway, I don't have a problem with it coming through council. Either way, it's not really the decision's not going to be made by one person. It's either going to come through the committee, or if it's denied, it will come to council for a decision. Either way, council is making a decision about what they're discussing. So I don't see how that's a problem.
Yes.
But I do see Jake's point now that you point out that, because I was under the impression that Green Commission stuff came through, and I did not realize that it did not. So I think the uniformity makes sense, but I think making sure that the scope is clear as to what is allowed to be on there, because I agree with the mayor. I don't think that they should be discussing capital improvement, ordering of things, right? Like that is something that for our budget committee to decide and for us to do. And I do think that they should not be directing staff to do anything. I think they should be making making recommendations to HREC to then bring it up to council. So,
That's what they should
Mayor,
be
for
doing.
council's
So the motion before us is that agenda items submitted to HREC chair.
Yes.
How about even just for coordination?
and I said
No, that's what
Yeah, the
Well,
motion currently. Okay, so I would
you
like
haven't
to
amended your
I would like
motion.
to amend my motion.
Okay.
I would amend my motion to add staff to be able to place items on the agenda as well.
Okay.
And then I would also like to amend to require that any recommendations that come from the commission go up to HREC for the basically they don't direct staff.
Right. All right. Who seconded the original
I think
motion?
Howard seconded the original motion.
Chapman, do you amend your second? Okay.
So for the
I'll
record,
amend-
the initial motion is withdrawn, replaced by that motion. And just for council's benefit, item number 1 on the resolution that came from committee provides that the Recreation Commission shall make recommendations to Mount Pleasant Town Council through the Health, Recreation, and Events Committee regarding matters related to recreation operations, programming, and existing facility use. So that
So it's already in there. So I
it
don't.
is already in there.
Okay,
Yes,
then I take out that part.
So do you still have an amendment about the agenda?
Right, to basically have it come from staff or come via staff or the HREC, and then I think we should make it that official for Green Commission too.
For what?
The same thing. I mean, I don't
Well,
want to. I'm
that's
not in
not
this
on the
motion. Not on the
agenda.
agenda. Not on the agenda. But I'm just
That'd
saying.
be a
we should-
violation of open
I know. I'm
meetings.
just saying we should talk about that later.
Sure. Okay. All right. So we have, Mr. Paglioni, is that a new motion?
The initial motion was withdrawn. It was
Okay.
replaced by a motion, which, as I understand it, is that the agenda would be through the HREC chair as well as staff.
Mr. Chapman,
I accept that.
okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to ask how that differs from item 6. Agenda shall be approved by council. Correct. Okay, it's a little bit different. Okay. So it's item 6 that it's going to replace. Is that what we decided?
Yes, ma'am. It
Okay.
would be item 6. And the way item 6 reads now is that agenda items would be approved by town council, which council means all of council, HREC, which would mean all of the committee, or the town administrator. So those 3, and this would replace that provision.
So Ms. Whitley, if I may, the reason you made this motion, so it doesn't have to wait for a meeting date and
We
it's
don't
to
need
coordinate.
The full council doesn't need to vote on what items go on this
Right,
agenda,
right,
right?
right.
Not at all. Like if anyone wants to put an item on that agenda, it's the same procedure as the staff does it, like they do for Planning Commission, or it comes through the HREC committee.
Right.
But any member of that commission can email Laura and say, I want that on the commission, or any council member can email Laura and say, I want that on the commission.
Okay. All right. All right. That's the motion. Mr. Rambo, did you want? Oh, Councilman Ritchie. Yeah, it's quiet down there.
Well, and I've been trying to get in. And by the way, I'm going to have you restate the motion before we vote. There's been so many reiterations of it. So my question is, and maybe you, Mr. Pacarini, because I keep hearing, make sure the commission understands the scope. How are we making sure that they know what the scope is? I want to make sure, because I'm hearing that from everybody. And even though we've all got our swords up and we're having heated discussions, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I think all of us want to know what is the scope of this commission? What kind of work are they going to do? And how do we get that to them, sir, or Mr. Pacarini? How do we make sure that is very well defined so we don't have anything outside of those lines? I'd love to hear that, sir, from you or Mr. Pacarini or whomever.
Well, sir, certainly it's on staff to make sure that the agendas are complying with what council has requested. I think that's the first order of business. As written right now, and certainly this is for council to discuss the scope, it is matters related to recreation operations, programming, and existing facility use. Those are the elements that would shape the scope of the commission.
So there's no discussion of capital improvement or expenditures and things that we're concerned. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Understood.
All right. Are we ready to vote on the amendment from Mrs. Whitley? Do you want that amendment read again?
I would, sir.
Mr. Pagliani, do you have it?
I understand it, but if you'd like me to summarize
Or
it.
the clerk? You're the one that's got to get it right.
It's my understanding that the motion is agenda items must be submitted to the HREC chair or by a staff member to make it onto the agenda for the Recreation Advisory Commission.
And I believe I heard in your motion, this would replace item 6 in the draft.
Correct.
Okay. And that's all a replacement of item 6. Everybody clear?
And did I hear, sir, that a commission member could also bring something forward? Did I hear that? Okay, let me make sure I heard that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm way down here at the end.
A question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brownstein.
So, a little bit of clarification on Mr. Ritchie's comment. So, if a commission member wants to place something on the agenda, how do they do so?
Under this ordinance, they could go to the committee chair or anyone and any member of council and request that it go to the committee chair or request the town administrator.
And if the answer is no, what's the recourse? Do they bring it to council and we get 3 members and put it on a full council agenda?
That'd be correct.
Always be
Right.
done. Yeah.
Just like
Put the Green Commission.
All right, Ms. Whitley, and then let's vote.
Yeah, I think there are things that citizens bring forth that don't make it onto an agenda because they are things that either don't make sense or, you know, are not workable or illegal. You know, like I have students ask, like, what red light cameras? Why can't, let's put red light cameras on the agenda? And I'm like, well, there's actually a state law that prevents us from doing that. So that's not going to make it on the agenda. So I think if a commission member brings forth something that is inappropriate for that agenda, they're not going to get 3 council members to put it on the agenda.
Right.
But if they bring something that is appropriate, and it's to me, and I'm like, well, Laura, put that on the agenda, and she's like, no, then I'll take it to full council.
Mr. Rama.
But also part of the motion was staff can approve it as
Yes.
well. So staff, whether it's Mr. Demora or Mr. Gerkik, are at all of the Recreation Advisory Commission meetings. So if a member brings up a topic and Mr. Demora and Mr. Gerkik say, oh yeah, that's certainly within the scope of that. They don't have to go to Ms. Hyatt. It can be added to the next agenda because the wording said that staff could say yes as well. Correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that.
All right. All in favor of the amendment as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right. By 8-1, amendment carries.
Move to approve items 2 and 3. A, 2, and 3. Oh, sorry, 2,
No.
3.
We have to final vote on
Yes.
this. If there are no
Yes.
more amendments.
Are there any more amendments? Are there any more amendments? All right. Yes, sir. Mr.
Can we
Randall.
get a summary of the amendments that we're voting? I'm sorry. Can we read back the amendments that were approved? I'm looking at the resolution. I can't remember what we've done and not done to it.
I'll look over this. It's 7 members.
We remove the chair as being a council member.
We remove the council. There's no council member as the chair. And the agenda, about the agenda that we just voted on, those are the things that I see.
That is correct.
You can ask that.
All right. All in favor?
Well, excuse me. I want to make a motion on item 3. It says the terms for each citizen seat on the commission shall be 2 years or as directed by town council. Why can we remove motion to remove or as directed by town council? Are we just doing 2-year seats on everything? So I make a motion on item 3 to remove or as directed by town council. I believe it's just all 2-year terms
I have
that
a
we've
question.
done.
Is it 2 years staggered?
Well,
Yes.
so
No,
if
it's all,
you don't
they're all
mind,
2
we
years.
went through
because
some
all
of this
terms
with the Green
expired.
Commission, and when, of course, the Green Commission was established after this, and it was, as I mentioned, these are ad hoc, and the long-term decision is whether these ad hoc commissions should be codified as permanent standing commissions. The Green Commission, in the development of that, the thought process was if that was council's wish, that we would stagger the seats so that it would be seamless in moving into that. And so that was not part of this. It certainly could be done, but the reason for that language is that if council decided to move in that direction, then you could stagger, but it is not absolutely necessary. It is probably not necessary at all, but that is the reasoning behind it.
All right. Is there a motion?
I guess, is there a way to, I understand what you're saying. So is there a way to, and it should have gone with a 1 year and then a 2-year term. Is there a way to either extend some members by a year or is there a way to somehow do 1 year and then 2 years for half the members so it can start to create that stagger?
I think the simpler way to do it would be that now that it's been decided there are 7 seats. You have 4 and 3, 1 year and 2 year. And we do it very similar, and that's all you need to say, and we would draft the language the same as it is on the Green Commission.
Okay, I will. I'll change my motion to whatever he said.
So it would be 1 year, 1 year, and 2 year seats. Is that correct?
And we'd stagger them.
4 and 3.
Yes.
The second, which is 4.
The two.
I believe we did. It 4 up front, and then it'd be
4 for 1 year and 3 for 2 years.
But
I think it's the opposite.
I think if
It's
it's
the opposite. 3 for 1 year and
my
4
recommendation is that it match the Green Commission as far as numbers.
Mr. Iacofano, are you saying your motion is 3 1 year terms, 4 2 year terms?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
And this is an item 3. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
My question was that, and you removed what part of what was the part you wanted to remove?
It just said, or as it said, the terms for each citizen seat on the commission shall be 2 years, or as directed by town council. So I was saying to remove the or as directed by town council, and then we replaced it with the 4 of the members will be 2 year terms, and 3 of the members will be 1 year terms.
My only question for you, Mr. Bagherini, what if there was cause to remove a member? How do we go about that? If we had
that's in an ordinance.
That's an ordinance. Okay, thank you.
We have an
That's
ordinance.
also want a clarification on that. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Was the point of putting or as determined by council
To do that.
was so that we could do that? I mean, do we
think so.
need to change that? I
No.
thought maybe that covered having that language in there meant if things were extended, then later we could make those
Yes, ma'am. That was
determinations.
It wasn't vetted and discussed at committee, but that was the reasoning for that language. But obviously, if the objective is to maintain consistency with our commissions, we can just sub in the language that we used for Green Commission.
I thought that covered it.
All right. Okay. All in favor of the amendment as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 9-0 amendment passes. Now, with those amendments, are we prepared to vote on the resolution? All right. All in favor of the resolution establishing the Recreation Advisory Commission, the resolution as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passes by 9-0 vote. Now,
Can I do my motion?
which one?
On item 2.
Yes.
I would like to move that we adopt items 2 and council new business A, 2 and 3.
All right. We have a motion in 10A, 2 and 3 to approve, and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Just a second. Item 11 is to adjourn. There being, yes, sir?
I apologize. I have to and ask that I be not included in the vote on item 10A3.
Understand. Because of a retirement thing with Cardiff. Yes.
Very good, sir.
Okay. So now may we vote
Just on that item.
on item 3? All in favor of approving the resolution authorizing Cardiff fiscal year 25 budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Please note that Mr. Chapman recused himself for a valid reason. All right. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.